My entire family's military, and I want to carry that legacy over to helping you grunts and officers out. If you've got a divorce going on, or you got a domestic violence, or heck, if you've even been put in handcuffs, give me a ring immediately. I've never lost a DV trial. That leads me to be a beast in a courtroom, in a divorce case, in a custody case. Let's face it, the paper pushing telephone softies can't compete. Hit me up at beattheda.com or give me a ring, 720-706-5151.
Hey guys, it's Mark Schlereth. I just made one of the best decisions of my life. I got rid of my glasses. I went to Cutarelli Vision and had refractive lens exchange, RLE. I wore glasses for distance vision, but I got to that inevitable point in life where I was always needing those reading glasses just to do about anything, and half the time I couldn't find them. Seeing menus, texting, reading my computer, or studying film, it was a struggle. But now I see the world perfectly, near and far, without any glasses, thanks to Cutarelli Vision RLE, the perfect permanent solution to spending your good active years not needing reading glasses. And here's the cherry on top. You'll never develop a cataract. Dr. Cutarelli is Colorado's most experienced with over 90,000 vision correction procedures. You can trust him to know if it's the right time for you and RLE. Schedule your free Zoom consultation at coloradorle.com. Cutarelli Vision, RLE, no readers, glasses, or contacts, or cataracts. coloradorle.com.
Switching your account numbers is hard. Being forced to switch, even worse. That's why at Belco Credit Union, we want to pay you to switch. From June 1st to August 31st, we're offering a $300 bonus when you open a new checking account with a qualifying direct deposit of $500 or more. They changed your account number. You can change who you bank with. Go to belco.org/switch for full offer details. Insured by NCUA. Membership eligibility required. Conditions and restrictions apply. Belco. Banking for everyone.
KKFN and KKFN HD1 Longmont, Denver.
You're listening to Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan. Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan presents the Honorable Judge.
I want to show the management that you guys are a loyal, passionate fan base, and they can see that when you log on to the YouTube channel. So if you don't mind, just do us a favor. Just go to YouTube and type in 104.3 The Fan Denver Sports, and watch the show that way a little bit. Just commit to me that you'll do some of the show like that. Excited to be with you. We do have 3 hours, right? Marcello wasn't just messing with us. We have 3 hours there, Sean Boyd, behind the glass.
3 hours, it'll feel like 2 because it'll just go by so fast, my man.
Yeah, we have a lot to get to. World Cup's still going on. How's your World Cup going for you?
I didn't pick out a bracket or anything because I didn't see those were live. But day to day, I loved all the games, or all the matches, rather. You got 4 matches a day, and it's like nonstop action. And it kind of put me in a different space because I never really paid attention to football like that until the World Cup, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, it was funny. I had lunch with my mom's, and she likes Mexican food. We went over. We actually did. We went over to Los Dos Patrios. Got some chili relleno nachos, and the taquitos were no joke. But I saw on the table the chips and salsa. That's like one of the phenomenons that people are coming here from other destinations, other countries, and they're like, well, chips and salsa. We didn't order this. And the wait staff was like, well, yeah, no, it's free. It's part of what we do here. I'm like, what? What? Oh, my God, this is the greatest thing ever. Free chips and salsa. See? It's pretty good. Like, America's got some good things. Now, they're also overwhelmed by the portion sizes. I'm trying to think, because we were overseas a couple of weeks ago. I didn't think the portion sizes were, at least not in Ireland, were that much smaller. I think they were about the same. I did notice the food did not taste quite as good most places. And also, most of the people were not as large in Ireland as we are here. We're a girthy people. But that's why, like we invented I think, well, no, did the Chinese? MSG, preservatives. Apparently it's delicious because our stuff tastes a lot better here. So I noticed that. So yeah, the World Cup rolling along. Poor Iran got knocked out because of some tie, between a couple good teams. By the way, just real quick on the food thing, Sean, I think you can appreciate this. Have you done the hot honey thing? 5 with my lovely wife, Kimberly, and my daughter, Eliana. She's 8 years old. We're over at the AMC at Arapahoe Crossing, and the pizza looks good. And I like, when I can get it, a nice sausage on my pizza. But the only sausage they had was hot honey sausage. Now, I typically am not down with the hot stuff. One, I had a bad experience with Invisalign, and my gums got jacked up, so I really just can't tolerate, from that perspective, a lot of hot stuff. But I said, you know what? I got to try it. It looks great. I know it's going to be hot. I know I'm not going to, I'm probably going to regret this decision I made. But I went ahead and I dove in head first and I got the hot honey. And you take the first bite of the hot honey.
Was that your first bite ever in life?
Ever in life. I've never had a hot honey wing.
Where have you been at?
Never had a hot honey sandwich because it doesn't make any sense to me. Why? The hot part of the hot honey is just going to cause you pain and suffering. Why do we want that in our life? I don't understand it.
We love spice.
I don't want to suffer. I want to be happy. That's why I don't listen to music. I want to be happy. But no, so I take a bite and the sweetness of the honey and the crust and the savoriness, I mean, it's delicious. Like, oh my God, this is fantastic. And then the heat comes. So I'm like, this is just torture because it's so good, yet it's so bad. And so then I make my wife eat some and she's like, yeah, that's hot, dude. Right. And then I give some to my 8-year-old just because I'm a jerk. I made her eat some, and she was very upset with me. So it's like this cruel mistress, this hot honey thing. I ate the whole dang pizza. It's a little pizza. It's a little, but like, it took me the whole movie because you can't eat the whole thing at once because it's hot, the heat, the spice. But now I don't know, am I a hot honey guy or not? Like I feel it's like I've talked about with Rocky fan. Right, the Rockies fans, they keep going back for more punishment, even though they know they're going to end up disappointed or in pain. Or, that guy in your crew that couldn't quit the crazy, kept going back to those crazy relationships. I almost feel like hot honey is my new Colorado Rockies. I don't know. So, I don't know. New experience for me last night. Movie wasn't too bad.
Dan, I got to be honest with you. I put hot sauce on everything I love. And, so I don't relate to that. Now,
masochist is what we call it. You're a masochist.
Yeah, I mean Tabasco, the hottest stuff, right?
What do they call us? Glutton for punishment.
It's just flavor to me. Mm-hmm. But what I was going to say, though, right? I think that all Denver sports right now is kind of like a honey hot. It's like you've got the Nuggets that you don't know what way they're going with things. Jokic is not signing deals. They're looking for trades and things like that. The Broncos have, Bo Nix injury. How is he going to respond? So they're going back to the honey hot. And then you got the Rockies. They're good on certain days, and then they're just atrocious on other days.
Hey, Rockies, they're giving you a little bit of that sweetness. To make you interested. No longer on pace to lose 100 games?
Well, no, 1,000 would have been right, too.
Well,
but at least 100 for sure, right?
Yeah.
But I think that with the guys that they have on that lineup there, it's not a bunch of names. It's nowhere near a Chris Bryant or a Nolan Arenado or a Trevor Story. All those guys are gone. So it's a new guard now, and those guys are they're like the Sour Patch Kids. They're sweet for a moment. They're good. And then things turn sour when that bullpen comes in around the 7th and 8th innings.
Now, talking about things that turn sour, I have to get to a topic. And I'm actually going to give credit to The Drive. Because you know how much fun I like to have with, I love all the other shows on the station. But if you want to know what they're going to be talking about on The Drive or The Morning Show or Dover and Cecil, just listen to the Dan Jacobs Show today, and you'll find out. And that actually did happen to The Drive. I'll talk about that later. But The Drive did it to me this week. Because what happened was last weekend we had 2 shows. We had 6 hours, and we couldn't get to everything. One of the things I wanted to get to was this situation. Sean Keeler of the Denver Post wrote an article about the alumni feeling disrespected from Coach Prime. And I've talked about Coach Prime a lot. And the Sanders boys and all that stuff, and what I admire about what he has tried to do at CU, and in some cases has done at CU, and I've commended the university for trying out this new innovative thing. And so I've said some positive things about, the experiment, and I've had some criticisms of the experiment. I've tried to be as objective as possible. I wouldn't say Sean Keeler has, because, Sean Keeler and Coach Prime have beef. But then an article came out last week, and I wanted to talk about it, and I printed it out, and I saved it, but I didn't have a chance to get to it last week. So I put it in my little cubby hole where I put my headphones and all that. And I said, well, you know what? That's a good topic anytime. We can talk about that next week. I want to make sure I get to it. But lo and behold, I'm listening to The Drive, 2-3 days ago. And guess what they're talking about?
Yeah, I heard that.
Zach Bye's on it. Zach Bye did his homework. And then just let me know if you have the audio. Then they have, and credit to Zach for asking the question, but they had Darren Cheverini on, who was a nice player, a really loyal Buff through and through for as many years as he could, right? Because he played here, and then he coached here. And if you listen to the whole interview, you can actually find it at DenverSports.com. He was talking about eventually he had to leave because, and I didn't even realize it, I guess he was the interim coach for CU for a minute, and he wanted the job. It's his alma mater. Of course, he wanted to be the head guy. And somebody had basically told him, hey, man, it's not going to happen for you until you actually go become a head coach somewhere else. So he said, I got to go. And he's been building a rather impressive resume at other schools. I think he went to a junior college, and now he's at a school, and he's had tremendous success. And so Phil got him on. And at the very tail end of the interview, Zach wasn't sure because, it's a sticky subject. And, credit to Cheverini, because usually, by the way, it's just in my folder from today. I did a folder for today. Normally when you ask coaches something that's anywhere sniffing around controversy, unless they have an axe to grind, like Saban may have an axe to grind against one of his former assistants or whatever, or like Lane Kiffin will give you some good stuff, right? But most of the time, coaches, they do what we call coach speak, and they don't give you very much. And it would be uncomfortable it could be uncomfortable if he was sensitive for Coach Cheverini to say anything remotely critical about his alma mater. For one, because it's very clear he would like to be the next head coach here. Whenever that happens, he's not saying, I hope Coach Prime gets fired. To the contrary, he's saying, I like Coach Prime. But, he may want to toe the line a little bit, as former athletes and, alumni do. But Zach said, answer it how you want. I don't want to put you in a bad spot, so if you're not comfortable, just don't even say anything. But Zach asked Coach Cheverini about what's going on in that Sean Keeler article and about how alumni are being treated by the current staff at the University of Colorado. And credit to Coach Cheverini, gave a very honest, insightful, articulate answer, and here it is.
Darren Cheverini with us here on the line, talking Davis Webb, talking Philip Lindsay. We have about 2 minutes left, and we'll cut you loose here. And if you don't want to say too much about this, you don't have to. I'm not trying to put you on the spot here. But CU, the conversation about CU, and obviously you're a CU former player, former coach. The alumni base feels a bit split right now, and we've talked to several different CU players, and Darian Hagan very recently going on the record and talking about some of the, wounds and the lack of acknowledgement, with the current football operation to the past and all that stuff. How closely do you follow CU? I know you're up to your eyeballs in football of your own, but if you wanted to share just your feelings on the current state of the program, I wanted to give you that space to do that.
Yeah, so listen, obviously I'm an alum, so, Colorado is my school and something that I'm very proud of to be a CU alum and someone that bled on Folsom Field. I think there is a fractured alumni base right now, and here's why. I mean, listen, nothing against Shedeur Sanders and nothing against Travis Hunter, unbelievable players at CU, and definitely should be recognized. At some point, they should have been recognized. I think them skipping to the front of the line, I think it wore a lot of the old buffs, that were worthy of being up on those walls the wrong way. I mean, listen, Travis Hunter at some point was probably going to go up there, right? At some point he was going to go up there. Took Rashawn Salam a long time before he got put up on that wall.
Yes.
And I know things have been said, well, people shouldn't have to die before they go up on the wall. I agree with that too. I'm not saying they have to die before they go up on the wall. What I'm saying is that legacies need to be judged over a course of time. There's always should be a cooling off period. When someone finishes their career in college, just like in pro football, there's what they call a cooling off period. So legacies can truly be evaluated over 5 and 10 years of time to see how they hold up with the other greats with whatever organization, whether it's University of Colorado, whether it's the Denver Broncos, whether it's the Dallas Cowboys. There is a cooling off period to have evaluation of legacies, and you should not skip to the front of the line for any reason.
Right.
And so I think, and I spoke out about this. I've spoken out about it. I'm a fan of Deion. I am. Like, people get mad when I say that, but I like Deion. I think Deion has done a good job of making CU relevant again from a national perspective. I think Travis Hunter was a generational talent. I'm a huge fan of Shedeur Sanders. If people have seen what I've said about Shedeur on multiple occasions in national articles, I'm a fan. But he doesn't go up there before Darian Hagan.
Right.
Yeah.
He doesn't go up there before Darian Hagan. He doesn't go up there before Eric Bieniemy. He doesn't go up there before Chad Brown. He doesn't go up there before Alfred Williams. He doesn't go up there before Deion Figures, who wore number 2. That's my opinion. I'm a buff, and I think I have the right to say that. I think I've earned the right to say that.
You have.
It's nothing. I want people to know there's nothing negative about Shedeur. It's not Shedeur or Travis's fault. I respect them, and I'll always respect what they did for CU, man. They wore the black and gold. They wore that headgear. They ran behind Ralphie. They're one of my brothers. And I just think that things have got to be done the right way. There's got to be transparency. There's got to be committees formed. And it's got to be done the right way, because CU football now has a long, long history. I know people don't like to hear that, but it has a long, prideful history and tradition of national championships, national award winners, all conference players. We don't get to skip the line because it's the most recent guys.
All right, so good perspective there from Coach Chiaverini, and I want to unpack this conversation. Because I actually hadn't done it yet, and forgive me if I'm incorrect on this, but I said, well, how is it possible? Because that was what they're talking about throughout the week, that Darian Hagan and Alfred Williams, all these guys, Cordell Stewart, Deion Figures, like all these guys don't have their numbers retired, which some of them are in the College Football Hall of Fame. And so what I just saw when I Googled it is really kind of a shame on CU situation, which actually gives Deion Sanders a little cover. Not a lot, but a little. Because what Deion looked at is, all right, how do you get your number retired? Like, who's had their number retired in the history of this program? And the answer is, before Shedeur and Travis Hunter went in, the answer was 4. So now I believe unless they've added some more, is it 6? And we're talking about most of these guys are from decades ago, before most of us were born. We're talking about Joe Romig from, I think, 1959 and Byron Whizzer White from, I don't even know, 1930 or 40, and Bobby Anderson, who was, I think, in the 70s. Only one modern era player before Travis and Shedeur was in, and that was Rashawn Salam, who won a Heisman Trophy and rushed for 2,000 yards. And am I right? Did he go in posthumously? Did they wait until he passed away to put him in? I could be wrong on that. But I know Chiaverini kind of mentioned something like that. That's ridiculous. That's absurd. That's on Deion. So what that means is, because Rashawn wasn't on the Orange Bowl teams, he came a few years later in 1994, I believe. How on earth do you have a football program that honors players by retiring numbers at all, and not one player from your best teams is on there? The best teams in the history of the program are what, 88, 89, and 90, 91, or 90, 91, 90, 90, 89, 90, 90, 91, whatever the years exactly were. The two Orange Bowl teams. We know what we're talking about. How are they not? Nobody has the highest honor? How is that a thing?
It's a thing, Dan, because Coach Prime, Coach Sanders, he did bad on this one. He played daddy ball with it, with the hallway of fame. He should have put Shedeur and Travis in the hallway of fame and made way for the gentlemen that already had paved the way for those guys to be there today. And I think that he did himself a disservice and Travis and Shedeur a disservice, because it only made them more of like public enemies because of it.
And I agree with you, but I also see Deion saying, hey, man, he talks about dogs and cats. Deion will tell you, I'm a dog. I'm not a cat. You hired an alpha, and I'm going to be an alpha. And in his mind, and he's right on one of them, right, with Travis, that I see the way you guys honor all-time greats. I brought in two, in his mind, all-time greats in Travis and Shedeur. Travis 100%. There's no disputing it. Shedeur, given the way the history of the program, Shedeur was never getting up there. And so he says, hey, well, I'm the man now, and I'm not waiting. While I have the power, I'm going to use it. And they're getting in now. And if you guys want to correct your past mistakes, and you want to put Alfred in, and you want to put Darian Hagan in, and you want to put Chad Brown in, and Deion Figure, all those guys, great. Do it. But I'm not waiting.
See,
because I'm the man.
I didn't know he said that.
No, he didn't say that. But I could see that's his line of reasoning. And if you look at it from that perspective, I can at least understand what he was doing. Now, was it the right thing? No. But again, if we're gonna make a Crimea River situation out of this, then the blame goes both ways. It is an absolute absurdity. And we just didn't know about it, right? But it's an absolute absurdity that those guys weren't already in. How could they not already be in? How is that even possible? And why have the alumni, not the players themselves, like Alfred shouldn't, pull a Carmelo, and he shouldn't have to. Alfred is, I'm trying to think about it. Alfred Williams, probably the greatest, and guys, hit me up on the text line or the Champ Honda YouTube chat line. I might be wrong about this. I'm just trying to think. Alfred Williams may be the greatest player in the history of the program, and he's not in, but he's in the College Football Hall of Fame. Why? Why is that a thing? Now, I asked Justin Adams about it. He played up there, and he agreed with the premise of most of this. People are hot, and I do think it was highly disrespectful for Deion to do what he did. But it's interesting because if you read the article, it's not just about whether or not those players got their numbers retired if they jumped the line. Alumni are very upset about that. But this isn't just about that. This is also about the alumni players, the former players, have issue with other things that Coach Prime is doing. So it's not just this issue of, well, he decided while I'm here and I'm the man in control and making the decisions, I will throw my weight around and I'll get my guys up there. You can deal with the rest later. There's other issues going on, which I want to tap into next segment. But Justin Adams said something very, very interesting. And also, Philip Lindsay, it was a little nugget. Philip's a great guy. He's a very positive guy. But is there a little bit of, hey, guys, you guys need to man up a little bit, too. When we talk about our former, the alumni. Like, are you guys a little too sensitive? Are you crying a little too much too? Like maybe you have a duty to tuck away some pride and be open to a reconciliation if there was really even a schism at all. So what did Justin Adams say? What did Philip Lindsay say? We'll get into that coming up next.
The Colorado Avalanche have made a major move.
So we have some breaking news.
The Avs have traded veteran forward Valeri Nichushkin to the Columbus Blue Jackets, ending a 7-year run in burgundy and blue. In return, they get 3 draft picks, giving them 10 total ahead of Friday night's draft. What does this mean for the rest of the offseason? And what additional moves does Super Joe have up his sleeve? Denver Sports 104.3. The Fan.
DeerTrailMeatCo.com, DeerTrailMeatCo.com. Here's what it is. It's a beautiful thing. I mentioned I had lunch with my mom, and one of the things we talked about was the outrageous prices of stuff at the grocery store in general. And then, of course, we were talking about beef prices, and I was talking about steak, right? Like, it's hard for most of us to be able to afford steak anymore, or to at least justify it, because it's steaks that used to be $12 a pound are sometimes $25, $30 a pound. And I was talking about some lower end stuff like chuck eye or whatever. And she's like, well, what about a hamburger? Hamburger, $7, $8 a pound now. And I'm not just talking about organic. I'm talking about the regular stuff. She said, even the cheapest beef you used to be able to get, she just doesn't buy it very much anymore. It's just her and my stepdad. And she's like, we'll make chicken or we'll just do vegetables. It's really become a problem, but not with DeerTrailMeatCo.com, because what they do is you can pick the bundle you want, and they will deliver it to your front door with a money-back guarantee, and it's delicious stuff, and it's at a tremendous savings over what you're paying, up to 75 or 80% off what you get at the stores. I want you to check them out. It's DeerTrailMeatCo.com. That's DeerTrailMeatCo.com.
Summer should be a time of joy for children, but Wish kids often miss out due to their illness, creating a dark chapter during a time that should be filled with sunshine and memories. A wish from Make-A-Wish Colorado can change everything for these children, giving them the strength and hope they need to persevere in their fight against critical illness. My name is Carrie Fletcher. I'm part of the Alpine Bank family, member FDIC. Today, Alpine Bank hopes you'll decide to make a life-changing impact in the life of Colorado Wish kids by supporting Make-A-Wish Colorado. There are currently more than 450 Colorado kids with critical illnesses who are waiting for a life-changing wish, and 110 more kids will be diagnosed this summer. You can help make their wishes come true. Visit wish.org/Colorado to help Make-A-Wish Colorado grant some memorable wishes this summer.
Colorado, it's time to take our recycling to the next level. That's why Recycle-On Colorado is bringing you more curbside and drop-off service from peaks to prairies. Guidelines as clear as our skies, so you know what goes where. And the price? As free as gawking at bighorns on I-70. You deserve a recycling system you can count on, like your puffiest winter coat. And we're here to give it to you. Learn more at recycleon.org/Colorado.
Hey guys, Mark Schlereth here, and there's no better time to get your yard looking good, and there's no better way to do it than with Rich Lawn. With the organic-based fertilizer, Rich Lawn Turf Food, you'll get greener grass and build your soil for a beautiful yard. And while you're at it, don't forget to check out Revive to revitalize your lawn for deeper roots and deeper watering. Get Rich Lawn and Revive products at your Home Depot or your local gardening center. With Rich Lawn and Revive products, you'll have your yard ready in no time.
Progressive presents the Museum of You.
We begin our tour with a unique piece, a relic from the early big screen television era. Remarkable. Next, we find a juicer, which historians believe has only ever been used once. And finally, compact discs from the emo era. A rare find indeed.
Some things should be history, but until then, you could protect what's important to you and save by bundling your auto insurance with a renter's policy from Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
This summer, the Honey Pepper Pimento Chicken Sandwich and Pineapple Dragon Fruit and Sprite are back at Chick-fil-A.
Let me tell you about the Pineapple Dragon Fruit and Sprite. It's bright, it's bubbly, it's back.
The Honey Pepper Pimento Chicken Sandwich, it's so rich, and you can choose between the original or the spicy filet.
Ooh, boy.
And then you got those pickled jalapenos tucked right under the filet, and then just to top it all off, you've got a little honey drizzle right on top.
Okay, now I'm a pimento fan.
And I'm feeling the dragon fruit.
Which fan favorite will you choose? Real customers paid for their testimonials.
You're listening to the Honorable Judge Dan Jacobs on Denver Sports, 104.3 The Fan.
All right, I wanted to give this conversation due justice, and we just didn't have enough time in the first segment. So I'm going to continue talking about the situation that's going on with Coach Prime and CU and the alumni, the former player alumni, which, again, the more I look into it, in fact, I'm going to read this part. This is part of the Sean Keeler article. As Coach Prime heads into his fourth season in Boulder, CU football alumni remain divided. Not in their love for the Buffs, not in their appreciation for what Sanders has done to elevate a program into the national conversation after Pac-12 irrelevance for more than a decade threatened to bury it. It's a perception thing. Another CU great, Chad Brown, explained it best. With the exception of a statue unveiling for former Buffs football coach Bill McCartney last year, a ceremony that wasn't open to the public, many Buffs football alums feel as if CU Athletics' official position is that football at Folsom Field didn't exist prior to Coach Prime, which is funny given that the Buffs won 8 or more games 13 times from 1985 to 2005, a feat the current coaching staff has accomplished to date just once. Well, okay, in fairness, they've only had 4 attempts. I just will say that. Some of these new Buff fans act as if CU didn't play football before Coach Prime showed up, said Brown, the longtime football analyst who was a second-team All-American linebacker at CU in 1992 when the Buffs went 9-2-1. So there's that. But let me ask you this. What's implicit when Chad Brown brings up, well, okay, so they retired Bill McCartney, they gave him a statue. Well, is that Coach Prime's fault? Why hasn't the university, he's the father of CU football. It's unbelievable. Why Bill McCartney, why on earth, in fact, why didn't they do it? So when Coach McCartney got sick, he got, dementia, but he announced it early on in his diagnosis so that fans would be aware, because he was still going to try. His family was going to let him live as much of a life as possible. And so he would still be out in public, and he still had good long-term memories, but the short-term stuff, like you may have saw him yesterday and he wouldn't remember, but he was still somewhat with it. Why didn't you do that right away, right when you knew he was on the decline? Why are we waiting? The national championship team players are getting older. They're starting to get to that point where you never know if the next day is going to be your last. And they played football, by the way, which shortens the lifespan. Why? The outrage here, I got to be honest with you, should not be with Coach Prime. Yeah, it was a little classless, but it's on brand for Prime. He's going to do what he wants to do. And yeah, is it a joke that Shedeur Sanders has a number retired? It's a complete farcical joke. And I can understand why people are upset with that. And I can really understand why players like Eric Bieniemy and Alfred Williams and Cordell Stewart and all these guys don't have their number up already. But that's all on CU. That is absurd. But now to to go to Justin Adams' point, in a little bit of fairness, he said, they invited us. You read this article, and it sounds like one of the things that really upsets the former player alumni is that, well, Coach Prime is bringing in all these rappers, and I kind of have my running joke, which is, hey, if you really want to make CU relevant, CU football relevant, bring in a bunch of former Miami Hurricanes. And guess what? That's what he's done. He brings in The Rock. He brings in Warren Sapp. He brings in Michael Irvin. He brings in all these guys. He doesn't bring in Cordell Stewart or Alfred Williams or Philip Lindsay. Like, Philip Lindsay's got recency. Why would Philip Lindsay be persona non grata? He's probably their most popular recent player outside of Shedeur and Travis.
See, Dan, I get the feeling that Phil can walk around, Boulder and do what he wants up there. Phil can still walk around Boulder as it's his oyster, right? So,
well, the town, not the facility.
No, I thought in my brain, I thought that he's like alumni. He could go to the facilities. He could walk around, tap in with players, shake hands with coaches. Are you saying that the doors are closed to the alumni?
That's the way they feel. But Justin Adams said, that may not be true because Justin Adams is an alumni. And he said, they invited all the alumni to the spring. I think he said the spring game. Those guys didn't show up. He said, first off, the alumni section was about half full. So they were invited. If they're choosing to stay away because their feelings are hurt, well, I don't know that that's on Coach Prime. Maybe he could do a better job of making them feel welcome. But another thing that Phil said, which is fascinating to me, because we get Phil every day here on The Drive, and he just sounds like such a nice guy, which I'm sure he is. And he doesn't really throw off an egotistical vibe.
Don't butter him up, Dan, before you hit him with the chip dip. So,
what do you say? Are you saying like don't do a Zach by backhanded compliment?
Yeah, don't hit him with chip dip.
Like I love, because by the way, this is what I hear about Coach Prime all the time too. Oh, I love Coach Prime, but boom, and then they hit him, and then they basically say they hate him, right? Oh, I love Coach Prime. The one thing though is, and then they poop all over him. And I'm not going to poop over Phil, but what I am going to say is things we know. We know that he got mad at the Denver Broncos because they told him they were gonna draft him if he was around in the 7th round, and then they would take him, and they didn't. They lied to him. They took a different running back that he outplayed, and they didn't make the roster. And he's told the story. He's like, I almost told them to buzz off. I think his parents were like, hey man, chill out, right? We know that he was very upset, very vocal. I mean, well, one, like he went off on the fans. Remember, it was like, hey, if you're not with us when we're 3-12 or we're 3-14, don't get on the bandwagon when we start winning. He kind of lashed out. He was very upset, obviously, about his contract and things like that. So he's got fire in him. He's got a little bit of ego, but I hadn't really sensed that since we started working here. I knew about it as a player, right? But he said something that was interesting when they had after Cheverini, which was because in the article, I believe it's Darian Hagan saying, the new athletic director reached out to me, and that's good. And I think we're gonna see a thaw, and I think we're gonna be more welcome up in Boulder. And Zach was talking to Phil about that, and he said, hey, Phil, have you heard from anybody? Has he reached out to you? And the answer was surprising. And you tell me, Sean, you're a former athlete. You probably never lose a little bit of that chip. Phil said, yes, I got a call from his office saying that he would like to speak with me. But I ignored it because until he calls me personally, I ain't got time for that.
Well, I mean, respectfully, I see both sides of the coin. Now, Phil, they reached out to you. What you were saying was a problem, and he bridged the gap. He reached out. But if you're saying you sent the middleman to come holler at me, no, you did bad, Coach, yet again.
No, not the coach. This was the athletic director. So the athletic director said to the lady that does his schedule, saying, hey, I think it's important to reach out to these guys. Can you, Philip Lindsay, he deserves a voice in this conversation. Can you give him a call for me and set something up so we can chat and let him know that I personally would like to speak with him?
Yeah, so then Phil's in his feelings a little bit, you know what I mean? Just about things that, he still got that chip on his shoulder. And for all the right reasons, because all the different players from years past probably have something to say. I got a guy by the name of Bobby Purify that for surely has something to say in that conversation.
Very good running back, yeah.
Yeah, him and Chris Brown. Those two guys ran the ball in a time period for CU that almost goes looked over. And if those guys aren't in this conversation, then I don't even know if Phil's in this conversation.
Ooh, I don't know about that. Go look at Phil's numbers.
Before Bobby Purify and Chris Brown?
Yeah.
I mean, they're comparable, right? And my little cousin ran the ball up there at CU as well, Josh Ford. So, I mean, I got a plethora of running backs that I know of, and that I know personally that ran the ball at CU. And I think those guys have something to say about the conversation as well. But I'm pretty sure because of knowing who Bobby is, he wouldn't have shown up for that spring game as well.
Why?
He's a humble guy. Man, this guy wants to hide from everybody.
Oh, well, he just doesn't like doing that stuff.
He hides.
That's different than saying, I'm not showing up because I feel disrespected and I need my
Phil
respect.
Phil wants a phone call from the athletic director to talk as men, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's honorable.
Well, yeah, but they reached out and he said, I'm not taking the call until I get the appropriate amount of respect. Or whatever. Like, I don't know, man. That was just, it was surprising to me. Again, I've never been in a position like that. I'm just a regular guy. I've never been a big dog like that. So maybe it just goes with the territory. I don't know. I was surprised by that. Now, the interesting thing is, how does this go down? I think this is likely to be Coach Prime's last year, because I don't think it was interesting. I was talking to Justin Adams off air. He said he thinks they're going to surprise people and they're going to be a lot better. I just don't see it. The evidence is not there for me. And so whether Coach Prime decides to walk away because he's tired of getting embarrassed and he just doesn't have answers, or if the university says, hey, man, this is not what we're making you a top 5 paid college football coach for, and then they make a move, I don't see, unless there's something dramatically changed, how Coach Prime goes beyond next season. But that's why this season is going to be so fun. All right, if you guys want to react, RamosLaw.com, text line 303-713-104.3. Or, like we said, I saw a bunch of you jumped on. I appreciate that. If you want to support the show, one very easy way you can do it, log on to YouTube, the Denver Sports YouTube. Watch the show that way, and you can get involved in the Champ Honda YouTube chat. Somebody already got in there asking me for my baked beans recipe again. You want to get in there, that's another way to get involved in the program. All right, coming up next, finally, we talked about it months ago. Everybody else is getting on board. No more excuses for Joker and McKinnon.
The Blue Line is back. The Colorado Avalanche have re-signed defensemen Brett Kulak and Brent Burns. Kulak, the steady shutdown force who locked it down on the back end upon arrival from Pittsburgh last season. And the ageless Burns back for his 23rd season in the middle of an Ironman streak. Now with draft picks in hand and more cap space to play with, what's next as Joe Sakic tries to fill out the roster? Denver Sports 104.3. The Fan.
Jacob's Law, 303-LAW-4040. That's 303-LAW-4040. If you listen to my ads, once or twice a year, I always like to just do kind of a public service announcement about your insurance coverage. But something very interesting happened this week, because what you want to make sure you have what's called MedPay coverage on your auto insurance, and also UIM coverage, which is uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. And what that is basically you're insuring yourself. The insurance most people pay for, it provides you coverage if you hurt somebody else, but it doesn't cover you if somebody else hurts you, because that's a mistake. Because if they don't have any insurance, like 15% of the people driving out there, or they don't have very much insurance and you get seriously hurt, you're just gambling on what coverages they have. So I always say get MedPay and UIM, but a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to pay a bunch of extra money. And I try and tell them it doesn't cost that much extra. Well, I was reviewing a new client's policies. She had $25,000 in MedPay and it only cost her $31 for the entire policy. She had $100,000 of UIM, and it cost like $100. Meanwhile, she was paying $2,000 for all of her other coverage to insure other people. It's not that expensive. It's pennies on the dollar, and you absolutely need it. If you have any questions about it, give us a call, 303-LAW-4040. That's 303-LAW-4040.
For 90 years, Belco Credit Union has proudly called Colorado home. That's thanks to all our members who have helped us grow alongside our beautiful state. To celebrate our anniversary, Belco is offering a special low fixed rate on a new home equity choice line advance. If you've been waiting to start a new home renovation project, now's the perfect time. Go to belco.org/90 years to see full offer details. Equal housing opportunity lender. Membership eligibility required. All loans subject to approval. Belco. Banking for everyone.
Did you really think Pure Talk was just going to sit back and watch America turn 250 years old without doing something awesome to celebrate? Of course not. That's why they're raising $250,000 for America's Warrior Partnership by the end of July. America's Warrior Partnership is on the front line of preventing veteran suicide. They've had extraordinary success, and here's how you can help. When you switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk this month, you'll be invited to round up to support America's Warrior Partnership. No pressure, but if you do, Pure Talk will match your donation dollar for dollar. And to further celebrate 250 years of our extraordinary democratic republic, Pure Talk is offering unlimited talk, text, and data for just $34.99 a month. Dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe. That's pound 250, say Mike Rowe. And happy birthday to us.
1-877 Cars for Kids. KARS Cars for Kids. 1-877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Call 877 Cars for Kids to reach a friendly live agent. Donation is super easy, and your car can be picked up as soon as tomorrow. Call us now or go to carsforkids.org.
7 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Did you know you can donate real estate too?
Hey, good morning. You're heading to the airport, right?
Yep, thanks for checking. I like the car. How long have you been a rideshare driver?
About 3 years now. I really enjoy it.
Isn't it hard to make money these days with the price of gas being so high?
Not for me. I use Upside, the free app that gives you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get money back when you get gas with the Upside app?
Yes, I get cash back every time I get gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
I'll make around $200 to $300.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the Upside app now.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code IMPROVE for an extra 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. You can cash out anytime, right to your bank account or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code IMPROVE for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code IMPROVE. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and details.
It's the Honorable Judge Dan Jacobs on Denver Sports 104.9 The Fan.
All right. Final segment of the first hour. It's like you said, Sean. It's going to feel like 2 hours, even though we're going 3 because we're rolling through. Wanted to touch on something because, again, we have the fun with the other shows. We say if you want to know what they'll be talking about on the other shows, you just listen to the Dan Jacobs Show today. If you want to know what they'll be talking about tomorrow or in the future, just listen to the Dan Jacobs Show today. And we started this conversation about both Jokic and McKinnon months ago because I did the analysis. I did the work. And because we feel bad, we have the two best players in their respective sports, and almost with the exception of each has one championship, and we feel bad that they don't have more. And it's like, well, do we hold them accountable? Do we hold the Cronkies accountable? Do we hold the coaches accountable? Do we hold their teammates accountable? Or again, do we hold them accountable? Does it diminish their greatness? And I looked at it, and the answer is, yeah, it does. It diminishes their greatness. In the respect that, particularly with Jokic, we want to believe he's one of, in fact, Coach Carl said it. Coach Carl loves Nikola Jokic. Says he's already a top 10 player, could finish in the top 5. So with Jokic, we're talking about all-time great. With McKinnon, it's interesting. Now, McCarr is another story too, right? But with McKinnon, right now we consider him one of the top 2 or 3 best players in the league. Some years he's the best player in the league. Sometimes he's, in the top 2 or 3, but he's in the conversation the best player in the league. I don't know how he's going to be viewed if he's a top 10 type player. I think Cale McCarr may be. It's different because you hold defensemen to different metrics. But he may be, when it's all said and done, even better than Bobby Orr as far as the best defenseman in history. So you can add him to this mix. But if you look back at the best players in the NHL and in the NBA, because here's the excuse you always get. My buddy Dave Cohen always does this. He's like, I know hockey. It's hard to win the Stanley Cup. Yeah, it's hard to win championships in pretty much every sport. That is hard. There's no sport that you go, oh, it's easy. It's easy to get a championship. No major sport. But while that is true, what is also true is that the greats, the top 10s in each sport, they all have multiple championships. And really, we're talking about more than 2. Wilt is the only one in the NBA that only has 2. And in the NHL, those guys have multiple. And these guys only have 1. And right now it's looking like, if I had to bet, I would say McKinnon has a better shot, but I don't know. I think the Avs can, maybe for 1 or 2 more years, try and put themselves in a position. I mean, they'll be in a position, but I just don't know if they have what it takes. But what they're doing this offseason shows they're at least trying to remedy that. So it's interesting. I hear the morning show. You know what they're talking about? Lay it on us, Big Dog.
Watch
Sean.
play. He's phenomenal. And he had, what is he, a 5-time NFL MVP winner that needed a defense to win another championship, to be on that kind of quote-unquote Mount Rushmore of, the guys who sit at the big boy table of NFL quarterbacks because they have multiple championships. It may not be fair. Life ain't fair. That's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just interesting with Nikola, man. You can't have the best player in the world for a 6-7 year span and win 1 championship and think that that's a success. I mean, based on 40 years without anything, I get it.
Right.
But still,
you can never be so, I guess, so spoiled, I guess, as a fan to say, only 1 championship. Ugh. Right? It should never be like that.
Yeah.
But if you are talking about legacies and you're talking about all-time greatness and you're talking about the idea of your players or your teams being remembered 20, 30, 40 years from now, and you really do care about legacy, then yes, Jokic has to win another championship.
Mm-hmm.
McKinnon has to win another Stanley Cup. Absolutely.
Correct.
I mean, that's just, if you're just looking at it from the standpoint of, hey, we're one of the lucky ones here in Denver, Colorado, we got to experience an NBA championship and a Stanley Cup with this group, okay. But if you are thinking about that next level, then yeah, you got to win another one.
All right. Well, welcome to the party, guys, in the morning show. You know what I'm very jealous of? Because this happens all the time. These guys, I don't know if they get to it on their own. Or, like, for example, when I first had this conversation, I had my research, and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to leave it laying around the studio because these guys won't be able to find this on their own. And actually, Zach Bye did months ago, but now they're just finally coming around to it. So either they stumble upon it finally later, and I'm just quicker than them, or they listen to the show, but they eventually come around to my point of view on a lot of these things. So I got really jealous when Mark Schlereth came up with I Told You So Island, because it was beautiful, it was genius, and I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Because that's really mine. It's mine. I'm the one that comes up with all the stuff that you guys snipe. But I got to give credit where credit is due. Mark Schlereth was the man. He came up with...
It's time to start trademarking some of this stuff.
I know, man. I know. Well, but on that one, he just beat me to the punch. Like, I should have come up with that. Why didn't I think of that? Yeah, but I got to give credit to Slareth. He thought about that. And it's funny, man, because just a week or two ago, I just started formulating. I came back to my, I said, well, how are we going to do the show? And how has my perspective changed on the Denver Broncos? And so I kind of unveiled it last week. And lo and behold, I heard more of it throughout the week on all the other shows. And so I'm going to bring you kind of a sneak peek. I'll set the table and talk to you about what the other shows are saying about the Denver Broncos and where they stand as a contender, as a roster, and all that good stuff. We'll get into that coming up next.
The Colorado Avalanche have made a major move.
So we have some breaking news.
The Avs have traded veteran forward Valeri Nichushkin to the Columbus Blue Jackets, ending a 7-year run in burgundy and blue. In return, they get 3 draft picks, giving them 10 total ahead of Friday night's draft. What does this mean for the rest of the offseason? And what additional moves does Super Joe have up his sleeve? Denver Sports 104.3. The Fan.
Hey, Green Gobbler here. So you've got a clogged drain in your bathroom. Water in the sink's overstaying its welcome. You're spitting today's toothpaste on top of yesterday's toothpaste. You hope that it'd go away. Yeah, clogs don't just go away. I make them go away. I'm Green Gobbler, the only clog dissolver you need. I'm bleach-free, safe for your pipes, and I work. Guaranteed or your money back. Because I never met a clog that was gonna unclog itself. Green Gobbler. Let the gobbler get it.
If the world were like a Sleep Number mattress, everything would adapt for your comfort. Because as your life changes and your body changes, Sleep Number mattresses adapt and shift to give you personalized comfort night after night. And right now, new mattresses start at $1,500 during our 4th of July sale. To experience a whole new world of comfort, visit a Sleep Number store or go to sleepnumber.com. Sleep Number. To a good life sleep.
Hi, Dan Cicchini, Done Right Home Improvements. For an 8% scheduling incentive and a special financing rate of 0% APR with 72 equal monthly payments, go to drhi.com. Kitchens, baths, counters, and floors. Finished basements, windows, and doors. You have our word, we'll treat you right at Done Right.
Do you have a good lemonade recipe? I'm looking for one. This is Jay Rickstrew for Alpine Bank, member FDIC, an equal housing lender. Now that summer is here, so are new opportunities. Fresh as a glass of lemonade. Maybe a home project is on your mind. Would your family like to take a camping trip somewhere fun? Whatever you'd like to make happen this season, Alpine Bank would like to be part of it. There are so many helpful tools and resources we offer to make this a great summer. Please give us a chance to tell you more about them. Stop by sometime soon. Oh, and if you have that lemonade recipe, bring it along too. My wife makes a peach pie that's knock your socks off. Alpine Bank, committed to Colorado and you.
Every hunt tells a story. Let Ties Taxidermy in Loveland bring yours back to life. Big game, birds, fish skin mounts, and reproduction. Expert detail since 2001. Call 970-6.
Mike Rowe here with a random fact. More than half of the homes that have basements in North America will experience water damage. It's true. Whether it's basement moisture, flooding, or bowing walls, do yourself a favor. Call Groundworks. I spent some time working with these guys. They're the real deal. Their people are trained and certified to waterproof your basement and stabilize your walls. Schedule a free inspection with Groundworks, the foundation and waterproofing experts.
Licensed in all states where work is performed. See website for details.
Meet Keith. He runs a 30-acre ranch. 8 years ago, his knees started giving out.
Climbing a ladder was almost impossible. If I could get down, I have to have something next to me to get up.
Keith's wife had a knee replacement. The recovery was hard and the results, not great. Keith wanted another way.
I won't go under the knife because I believe the body can do whatever it needs to do to heal itself.
Surgery wasn't the answer. QC Kinetics was. They're regenerative treatments. No surgery, no long recovery.
After the first one, the inflammation dropped 90%. Today, my knees are just amazing. I could not do what I've done if I had not gotten treatments to QC Kinetics. I just pray that my physical model continues to go and help other people.
Maybe that's you. Tired of dealing with the joint pain? Call QC Kinetics for your free consultation today.
Call QC Kinetics 303-900-8986. That's 303-900-8986. 303-900-8986.
Happy birthday to you.
My son Levi was so proud to turn 3, but he will never get the chance to turn 4. I'm Nicole Hughes, Levi's mom, and while on a family vacation, his childhood was snatched away when I turned to close a bag of chips. He was sitting on the couch surrounded by friends, and I split a brownie with him, and then somehow he slipped out the back door unnoticed, down a flight of stairs, and fell into the pool. When I jumped in to grab my son, the other half of the brownie was still in my mouth. I never thought my child would drown, but I was wrong. Drowning is the single leading cause of death for children ages 1 to 4. It is silent and fast, and it can happen even when you aren't swimming. Drowning is preventable. Please talk with your pediatrician about how you can keep your child safe.
KKFN and KKFN HD1 Longmont, Denver. You're listening to Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan. Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan presents the Honorable Judge Dan Jacobs.
All right. Hour number 2 of the easy, Sunday morning edition of the Dan Jacobs Show. So I started to, it's very interesting how I've evolved here on the station. Now, this is the 8th year that I've been back at the station, which just, by the way, time just flies by, right? And when I first came back, the Broncos were still kind of in the glow of, they had just won, was a Super Bowl 50. And John Elway was still telling people that they were a championship team, they were still going with plan A, and they still were just this free agent away or whatever, and that Joe Flacco was a Super Bowl winning MVP quarterback just now entering his prime, and that Case Keenum, trotting out all this stuff, and that, well, they could still compete for a Super Bowl with Trevor Siemian and drafting Paxton Lynch. So the media hadn't, being, I don't want to be mean or hurtful, but the Denver media being what they are, which is, it's a lot of groupthink. And especially then, when John Elway was in control, it was very common for the Broncos to put out a narrative and the Denver media to lap it up. And I just don't do that. What I try and do is I try and look at things from a different perspective, and I try and be honest. And so when I looked at those teams, I did not see good football teams. And so what does that mean? Well, it means if I'm being honest, they're not what John Elway is selling you. And they're not what Joe Ellis is selling you. And so I was very honest. And I remember one of the first shows I did, and I've talked about this before, they said, Dan, you're hosting with Stokely today. So why don't you go ahead and go out? They're having an off-season practice, having an OTA. Why don't you run out there and watch practice so you guys can talk about it during the show? And I came back, and I'm talking to Stokely, and I said, well, Stokely, what'd you think? And he said, oh, man, it looks great. It looks great. Everybody looks great. And he just made all these assumptions that there was no evidence to support. And I kind of looked at him sideways, and he says, what do you think, Dan? You don't think it was great? I said, to be honest with you, no. And this was during the Vance Joseph era. I said, to me, to be honest with you, it looked a lot like Dove Valley Country Club. It did not resemble what I remembered when I was covering this team full time during the Shanahan eras. It looked night and day. It looked like they had a nice, very comfortable, easy practice that I'm sure they all enjoyed. And Stokely said, how could you say that? And so the boss came in and goes, oh, Dan, coming out as Darth Vader, huh? You're the evil Darth Vader. He was a Star Wars guy. I'm like, well, I don't think so. I think I'm just being honest. And so for 5 or 6 years there, as the team spiraled into the worst stretch in franchise history, I was considered this evil guy. And the media would suck everything up, they'd lap everything up, and then they would have an egg on their face at the end of the season, just like then. Who was right? Was Brandon Stokely, the football analyst that played the game forever for 15 years, and he goes out there and he knows what he's seeing? Was he right with his football eyes? Or was I right? I was right. And I had been right for the better part of a decade. But at some point, and they kept changing, and what I had said was they are going to continue to suffer through this pain and embarrassment because what is ailing them is at a foundational level. And I spent many hours talking about the Broncos' trust situation, how that was not going to work because you had people that were responsible for doing the best thing for the team, but if they did the best thing for the team, they would be cutting against their own self-interests and their own livelihoods, to be honest with you. They would have to give up a lot of money, power, and prestige to do the right thing for the team. And so as long as that was going to happen, they were going to it wasn't just going to magically fix yourself. You weren't a Vic Fangio away from being a legitimate organization. You weren't a Nathaniel Hackett away. You weren't a George Payton away. You weren't a Vance Joseph away. You were very far away because you were. It's like they say, a house divided a house built on sand will fall, and they were built on sand. And John Elway, I always made the analogy, he was like the Three Little Pigs GM. He was always trying to rush, like the first two pigs. He was always trying to prop this thing up with sticks and straws instead of building with a solid foundation like the third pig. And so the big bad wolf in those days was Patrick Mahomes. He would just come by twice a year and blow the Broncos' house down. And I knew it would not get fixed until they got a pro in here. And sadly, and I knew this right away, even though everybody else was sucking up to him, and now they're sucking up to him again, I knew right away that George Payton was not that guy. And the reason I knew that was when they hired George Payton, they said, well, we're going to turn this over to you, except for you don't get to make the biggest decision for this team, which is, should Vic Fangio be the coach of this team? They said, we're not going to give you that power. We will not empower you to make the most important decision. And if he were a real guy that had the stones to make good decisions and run an NFL franchise, George Payton would have said what Mike Munchak said when they hired Vic Fangio over Mike Munchak. Mike Munchak, much better coach, would have been a much better hire. But when Elway said, hey, we're interested in you and we're interested in Fangio, but by the way, I'm hiring the coordinators, Mike Munchak said, well, that's great, but that's not me. So they went with the lapdog puppet in Fangio, and you saw the results. Well, same thing with George Payton. When they went to Munchak and they said, we're going to do your job for you to get you started, he said, thanks, but no thanks. I don't work that way. That's not how real leaders work. But Payton was just happy for the opportunity, and I knew right then that this was not going to work out. And it didn't. Like, he made two of the biggest blunders by anybody running an NFL team in NFL history. Really three, if you throw in the contract. You had the Russell Wilson trade, you had the Russell Wilson contract, and you had the Nathaniel Hackett hire. And by the way, he wasn't going to fire Nathaniel Hackett. The owner, the rookie owner, had to step in and correct those mistakes. So I had said, my analysis had always been, you got to get somebody that actually knows how to do it from a foundational level. And so I was actually on the air the day after, what was it, Christmas or whatever it was. So it was a holiday, and so I was on the air when Nathaniel Hackett actually word came down that Nathaniel Hackett was fired. And I right away said, there is one choice. It's a clear choice. It is Sean Payton, because he knows how to foundationally run an organization. So you can at least go from laughingstock to contender in the sense that you're competitive to competitor. Right? And I was right. Now other people wanted Jim Harbaugh. Other people wanted DeMeco Ryans. I knew Sean Payton was the guy for the job. I didn't know he was going to be so hard to deal with, but I knew he was the right guy for the job. But something funny happened. So Sean Payton comes in here, and he's just, there's no other way to put it. At times, he's a jerk. He's a obsessive, egomaniac narcissist. But he's also competent at what he's doing. And so he comes in, and he's got all these paranoid policies with the media, and he rubs the media the wrong way. And even though he's had success, the media is really chomping at the bit for him to fail. They won 15 games last year and were one injury away from the Super Bowl. And a week or two after the season, people are talking about how he has to give up play calling and how the game has passed him by. He took one of the worst teams in football, and within 3 years were a whisker away from the Super Bowl with a young quarterback. Like, he's done a really, really good job, but the media was hating on him. In the meantime, well, what was my approach? Now, I had been very critical of them for a long time. And I was still getting a little bit of heat because I was saying we need to be fair, even though I know Sean Payton's going to come out and say, we expect this and we expect that. For about the last 3 years, I had said, let's be fair to the Broncos. I know the media will suck up everything the organization says and heap all sorts of expectations on the team, but it's not fair to expect Sean Payton to walk in here and win, be Super Bowl contenders right away, particularly when the AFC was a very tough proposition. You had the Chiefs in the middle of their dynasty. You had the Bills. You had Joe Burrow. Excuse me. You had a lot going on. And so I had withheld expectations because I say, yeah, you hired the right guy, but you have to give him time to get things right and to mold the roster into his image that he wants to do. And I thought that was very fair. Now, I got some hate for that. They're like, Dan, you're always going to be a hater. I'm like, no, I just want to be fair because I don't think it's fair to call them Super Bowl contenders when they're growing. They're clearly rebuilding. Now, to Sean Payton's credit, they took a huge step forward last year beyond my expectations. So a few weeks ago, I said to myself, well, I still feel that they have some work to do from a roster perspective. I still think, while they're certainly, they were huge overachievers last year, I still think that there are some glaring weaknesses on the team. So how do I reconcile that? And what I eventually said to myself was, I don't think they're a finished product, but they view themselves as essentially a finished product. We know that because outside of adding Jalen Waddle and doing the draft, they basically said, we like our squad, we're going to run it back. So I have to take that information and say, how can I be objective, even though my analysis is saying they're probably, my mind tells me they're probably not true threats to win the Super Bowl. But I said, you know what? I got to change that thinking. If I'm going to be objective, I have to say, Sean Payton, you got to trust him. He's done a tremendous job. And if he feels this is how he's going to win, and they were only a step away from the Super Bowl last year, then you got to say the expectation has to be Super Bowl. It has to be. And so I've been talking about that for a few weeks. I've been fleshing that out. And even though, again, I think they're still offensively, they got a long way to go. But so this week I was talking about that the last couple of weeks, and I hear my brethren on the station, 3 different shows, 3 different perspectives. I still think they have ways to go. But our man Cecil, ever the optimist when it comes to the Broncos, he had this to say about whether or not they were still a work in progress.
I think we've got them all in terms of bricks. There's a lot of future bricks, though, that we could talk about. But as far as your foundation, that's why this team can be a Super Bowl contender, because they have these bricks. They have these sorts of players. You know exactly what you're getting from Bo Nix. You know exactly what you're getting from Cortland Sutton. We imagine what it can be with Jalen Waddle. It can probably be better than that.
All right, so now remember, sometimes, and we love him, Cecil, he's very passionate. This is the same guy that said, famously, and I got in trouble for replaying this quote on his show, But he had a rant. Sometimes he rants. He gets very excited. I would never do that. I'm always very calm. I never yell into the microphone.
Are you sure about that?
People
Dan?
never have to text in and go, Dan, why are you yelling? Dan, it's very odd. You're doing a show where you're talking to yourself. You don't have a co-host, and you're screaming into the microphone. Why is that? Who's upsetting you? Is it you? I guess so. No, I would never do that. But Cecil, he's very passionate. He gets on these rants, and he had a famous rant where apparently the Colorado Avalanche were the best team to ever, put on skates. And he's like, they could beat you any single way. You want to slow it down? They can beat you that way. You want to goon it up? They can beat you that way. Yada, yada, yada. And then almost immediately they get swept by the Golden Knights. So I'm just saying, maybe we'll be open to the possibility that's just sometimes my buddy Cecil, who's a good friend, maybe just sometimes he gets a little wrapped up in the moment. I think there's still some work to do. But in fairness to Cecil, if you ask Sean Payton, he's going to agree with what Cecil has to say more than my current analysis of it. But the funny thing is, so you just heard Cecil say, they're good to go. By the way, he mentioned bricks. Where have we heard that before? Three Little Pigs. But he thinks they're ready to go. Why can't they beat? Now, here's the interesting thing. It is a great opportunity for them because the AFC just fell apart last year. The Ravens, everybody had high hopes for the Ravens, everybody but me. They fell apart. Oh, the Chargers, they're going to be the real deal. They're not the real deal. Well, the Chiefs are going to be the Chiefs. The Chiefs are no longer the Chiefs. And for some reason, there's this assumption after destroying his leg, not even just a regular run-of-the-mill ACL, but like ACL and like multiple ligaments and really shredded his knee. And I understand he's going to come out and say, I got tiger blood and I'm going to come out week 1 and be just the same. He's not. He's not going to be just the same. So I would not expect the Chiefs. I think the Broncos are the favorite for the AFC West. 2 years from now, when he gets right, when Mahomes gets right, maybe it's a different story, but not right now. And the Bills, as much as everybody wants to crown the Bills, the Broncos beat them. Broncos were better than them. How are they going to fix that? And Joe Burrow, on any given playoff game, if he gets to the playoffs, is dangerous, but the Bengals are the Bengals. And I know that the Patriots were kind of the flavor of the month and they had their run and they beat the Broncos, but based on what you saw in the Super Bowl, how afraid are you of the Patriots? So it's all there for the Broncos, and I can agree with Cecil in that sense. That's why I've changed my expectations. They have to be considered up there with the favorites to compete for and maybe win a Super Bowl. Even though I'm uneasy saying it because I think they have holes they still need to fill, and offensively I still have questions, we got to go there. Now, it's interesting. You heard Cecil. Now hear what Mark Schlereth had to say.
There are still some questions that need to be answered. One of those questions is, how are we going to get production from the tight end position? And you could sit there and say, well, Davis Webb is going to do this and Davis Webb is going to do that. And the bottom line is, don't think they didn't want to get production last year out of the tight end position. They don't have the right guys for production. I mean, Troutman is what he is, right? He's not a prolific receiving type of tight end. Regardless of what Cecil says, Kroll is not that guy. He's a big-bodied guy. And then, Evan Ingram he doesn't naturally catch the ball. He just doesn't. And that dude is, I just, listen, man, is he a good player? Yeah, I suppose he's a good player. Is he the Joker, quote unquote? You think all of a sudden last year was is an outlier? No, that's essentially who he is. And so, that's a big question for me. I think this defense is still elite. I worry about Jonathan Cooper because I think Jonathan Cooper is one of their better players. I'm concerned about him, concerned about what happens with him and how long he's suspended for. But I think the defense is still elite, and I think this offense got a whole hell of a lot better with Waddle.
You know what's funny is I give Mark Schlereth a hard time. But we do have some policies here on the Dan Jacobs Show. So, for example, flattery will get you everywhere on this show. Like, we're just suck-ups, right? Like, hey, you go on the Sean Ponda YouTube chat line and you say something nice, you're probably going to get your thing read. You say something nice on the text. It's just so shallow and vain. It's a despicable policy, but that's our policy. If you agree with me, your Schlereth is agreeing with me. And it's funny because I was ranting last week. Evan Ingram is he's the new Jerry Jeudy. People are talking about how great, last year, and we had reason because Evan Ingram has had a couple really, really good offensive production seasons in his 9-year career. It's not the norm, but it made you want to believe. And we thought, well, he's coming here. He's getting a new start. Sean Payton will feature him, and he'll be great. And so everybody was crowing about Evan Ingram all year long. And it turns out that's just not him. He was top 5 in the league in drops. He had 70-some targets, but only 50 catches for, I think, less than 500 yards. But Stokely and a bunch of other guys were hearing, oh, well, who's your dark horse? Now that Jalen Waddle's here, who's going to be the third weapon? And most of the guys on the station that I heard were trumpeting Evan Ingram. And so it is funny that we hear Mark Schlereth going, no, dude, that's not the guy. Because my thing is, dude, he's going into his 10th year. You're expecting him to explode for a really good season into his 10th year, particularly in an offense where they don't have guys have great seasons. Like Cortland Sutton is considered, I don't know, some great wide receiver if he has 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. Like, that's a great year when that's very mediocre, really, amongst the NFL. But he's literally demanding more money if he gets 1,000 yards and 7 or 8 touchdowns. And we're paying him $92 million because he can be at best mediocre. So to expect Evan Ingram to essentially come out and have a Cortland Sutton type year, it's not going to happen. And so I think that was good analysis by Mark Schlereth. But here's the funny thing. Sean, I think it was you and I that were talking about it last week. Remember, the running back room is getting full? Well, yeah, the running back room is getting full. It's not getting full of talent, but it's full of guys on the roster that get a number to go out to practice. We heard the exact same thing this week on The Drive about the tight end room. All right. Well, we'll just take us just a second to get that. But yeah, essentially they're saying, boy, they're going to have some tough decisions at the tight end position. They do it every year with the wide receiver position. Oh, boy, there's going to be some tough decisions. There's never any tough decisions for the Broncos in the wide receiver room. Just like, but now we're hearing the same thing about the tight end room.
But yeah, that room, man, it's really full. And, there's going to be, again, one of these guys, like Troutman's going to make the team.
Yes, reliable.
Evan Ingram is going to make the team.
You have a lot of money tied to him. If you let him go, he's going and leaving with $6 million.
Right. I would venture to say, despite him being a 5th-round rookie, Justin Jolie is going to make the team as well.
You would think so. Now, you and I, we've seen rookies that are 5th round, 6th and 7th, and even 4th round draft picks, they get cut.
They can.
But with Jolie, if there's a vision for him, which that's why you draft him, the athletic ability, he's big, he's 6'3", he's 250 pounds, and you're looking to develop him, and you're not looking for him to start right away. So I imagine that they want him to be on the roster. And as long as Jolie makes a couple plays during camp, they're going to find a way to keep him on that roster.
Yeah, so, who's on the outside looking in? Maybe Nate Adkins.
Which is like, man, he's a Swift Army knife, right? You can put him at fullback. You can put him at tight end. Sean really does love Nate Adkins. He's really dependable when he's healthy. His issue last year was he couldn't stay healthy.
Right.
So, yes, that's one that he's on the outside looking in, and he's going to have to do some really good stuff on both tight end, as a tight end, fullback, and also special teams.
Well, they have Adam Prentice, too.
There you go.
For, that fullback position as well. So, I don't know. And Adkins has the exact dimensions of Justin Jolie. 6'3", 250, but Jolie is a much better athlete.
Yeah.
He's younger, and the vision is there. And as I mentioned, there's excitement inside that building. So I don't know how this is all going to play out. I don't think it's as interesting as the wide receiver room, but it's trending in that direction because not everyone's going to make it, and not everyone's going to play, and not everyone is going to produce. So we'll continue to monitor that position.
All right, so I almost burst out laughing. And no, I'm not saying this disrespect. What are we talking? The room is full because they have to have a roster for training camp. It's not full. Here's a good example. I'm a big Miami Hurricanes fan. I believe the 2001 team was the best team in the history of college football. And they were stacked. They had 16 first-round draft picks on one team. And you say the room is full. This was their running back room. Their running back room was
McGahee, Portis.
It was Clinton Portis, who was backed up by Frank Gore, who was backed up by Willis McGahee. That is a full running back room. When Joe Montana and Steve Young were fighting it out, that's a full room, a room full of talent at quarterback, right? Just simply having, because they do it every year here. Usually it's with the wide receivers. But last week I heard it was about the running back room and now the tight end room. And they always said about the wide receivers because they always have 7 or 8 guys on the roster. But they're not making tough decisions because those guys don't produce. It's not, Lil Jordan Humphrey, we have a hard decision. It's not a hard decision. If you don't want him on the roster, you put him on the practice squad and then you bring him up 3 times a year whenever you want him. Like, these are not hard decisions. Jaleel McLaughlin and these other guys are not hard decisions. Nate Atkins and Prentice, they're just not hard decisions. They don't have a starting tight end in the room. So who cares if the room is full? The room is full because every room, at every position on every roster is full right now. When you say the room is full, traditionally that means, ooh, man, are they going to decide to keep an extra tight end and cut a wide receiver? Or, they have so many running backs that can play that, is Tyler Bidet so good that they're going to go with one less wide receiver this year? None of that is happening with the Broncos right now. And it baffles my mind. And I know we have to have things to talk about, but come on, man. I'm cutting stories out and letting the drive beat me to the punch because I don't have enough time to get everything I want to talk about in 6 hours. All right, so coming up next, to continue this conversation, and nobody's mentioning this, I think we have the most disrespected Bronco perhaps in team history, at least modern history, sitting there on the roster that nobody is talking about. Also, I want to get your text coming up next. It's the Dan Jacobs Show here on a Sunday.
The blue line is back. The Colorado Avalanche have re-signed defensemen Brett Kulak and Brent Burns. Kulak, the steady shutdown force who locked it down on the back end upon arrival from Pittsburgh last season. And the ageless Burns back for his 23rd season in the middle of an Ironman streak. Now with draft picks in hand and more cap space to play with, what's next as Joe Sakic tries to fill out the roster? Denver Sports 104.3. The Fan.
DeerTrailMeatCo.com. That's DeerTrailMeatCo.com. Talking about the price of everything is just going through the roof. It's not just beef. Now, beef is a prime example, and maybe beef is even going through the roof more than other things, but it's everything at the grocery store. And I know what I was guilty of, and still, if I catch myself, I'm still guilty of it, is impulse buying. So I used to, when I was grilling a lot and I didn't have Deer Trail just sitting in my freezer waiting on me every day, like I'd go to the store, but I would buy enough for like a night or two. And so I was always going back, and I never bought just what I needed. I always bought way more. Well, it used to be that, I'd go to the store to get something for the grill, and I bought some stuff I didn't need, and it was $30. Now it's $80 to $150. Plus the price of beef is, can you even afford it? $25 to $30 a pound for steak, almost $10 a pound for hamburger. We're getting priced out. That's the beauty of DeerTrailMeatCo.com. They deliver it to your front door in the package that you choose, so you don't have to run to the store all the time. You just go to your freezer, and they give you a money-back guarantee. And it's a tremendous savings, 70, 80% of what you're paying for beef at the grocery store. Check them out. You'll thank me. It's DeerTrailMeatCo.com. That's DeerTrailMeatCo.com.
We wouldn't be celebrating America 250 if it wasn't for a strong foundation set by the framers. Hamilton built America's financial foundation on sound money, later embodied by the gold standard. But we abandoned that discipline in 1971 and have seen inflation erode the dollar's value. What's the foundation of your savings? Is it gold or something that can be devalued? Hi, it's Dr. Ron Paul, and I encourage you to speak with my friends at Birch Gold Group about diversifying an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. Learn more by requesting a free info kit on gold IRAs. Just text the word SECURE to the number 989898. Let Birch Gold help you build your foundation with gold. Text the word SECURE to the number 989898. Text SECURE to 989898.
Progressive provides protection for your boat and other outdoor vehicles so you can explore new things.
Oh, I can finally try pesto.
We meant like water skiing.
I've just never had pesto.
Or maybe take the boat somewhere new.
I mean, is pesto spicy or sweet? Oh, guess we'll find out, right?
Right. Bundle home or auto insurance with your boat, RV, or motorcycle and stay protected with Progressive while you explore.
I don't know. Maybe I'm not ready for pesto.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations.
Meet Lee Platts, a renter whose possessions fill not only her apartment, but also the darkest corners of a mini storage unit. A land of both truth and fiction. Truth, everything inside is protected by Progressive. Fiction, one day Lee will fit into her clothes from senior year of high school. Renters, discover coverage for what you love and what you can't get rid of in Progressive's Protection Zone. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and third-party insurers.
It's no secret that the checkout line feels a lot heavier. If those daily essentials are ending up on a credit card, those double-digit interest rates are quietly draining your bank account. If that debt is starting to feel heavy, you're not alone. And if you're a homeowner, you've likely looked at your mortgage rate and thought, I can't touch that. With American Financing's Smart Equity Loan, you don't have to. It allows you to wipe out high-interest debt and lower your monthly overhead while keeping your primary mortgage intact. It's a surgical strike against debt. Unlike a fluctuating HELOC, the Smart Equity Loan is a fixed-rate loan, giving you a predictable monthly payment. At American Financing, there are never any upfront fees to find out what you qualify for. Guys, talk to a salary-based mortgage consultant today. Experts who are paid to help you save, not sell you more than you need. So call them at 303-695-7000. That's 303-695-7000, or visit them online at AmericanFinancing.net. NMLS 182334, NMLSConsumerAccess.org.
You're listening to the Honorable Judge Dan Jacobs on Denver Sports, 104.3 The Fan.
All rise. All rise.
All right, it's holding court with Judge Jacobs. See, I had to take a little issue with what Cello was saying. He said the hottest new talk radio segment sweeping the nation is You Got Questions, We Have Answers. That's a good program. That's a good segment. But the hottest segment on the circuit is Holding Court with Judge Jacobs on the America's hottest new talk show 8 years running, The Dan Jacobs Show. All right, so let's go to the bailiff. Deputy, what do you have for us?
Well, today I'm coming from the standpoint as a prosecutor today, Judge. And so what I want you to do is I want you to fix your role, because the first case on the docket, okay, is the most urgent case in sports in Denver sports today, which is the exile of Valeri Nichushkin. Now, Judge, he was traded away this past week after the NHL draft wrapped up, and the biggest news wasn't the prospects, but it was Joe Sakic and him being back fully behind the wheel. And on Thursday, he officially pulled the trigger, trading Valeri Nichushkin to the Columbus Blue Jackets for a second, a third, and a fifth-round pick. Now, the defense argues that this is an ultimate addition by subtraction, getting the cap hit off the books. So, Judge, do you acquit Sakic for making a necessarily cultural move, or is he guilty of making this roster significantly weaker going into next season?
What I really like about the Avalanche right now is that they and this gives me hope, is that they are at least showing that they're not afraid to admit when they're wrong. They made a couple grievous errors with Nichushkin. Nichushkin had by the way, there's an article on DenverSports.com, I think Will Peterson wrote it, saying Nichushkin leaves with a complicated history or legacy or whatever here with the Avalanche. I don't think it's that complicated. He was a mistake. Val Nichushkin was a highly touted player coming into the league. He flamed out with his previous team, and he came here, and he had a really good year, and he had a really good playoffs. In hindsight, people like to talk about Val's run during the Stanley Cup run. They like to embellish it or overinflate it like they like to do about Jamal Murray's performance in the NBA Finals. They just don't match up with reality. When Joe says they probably wouldn't have won a cup without him, that's probably true. But the mistake was the problem with this core has been around for over, a decade? Or close to a decade? Much of it. The problem has always been for lack of a better term, they get too soft in the playoffs. And never was it more evident what they needed than when they were rolling through the playoffs the year before they won the cup and Nazem Kadri gets suspended. He leaves and the Avalanche get humiliated by the Vegas Golden Knights. He comes back the next year, and when they're very talented. They're the best team in the league every regular season, every year, just like they were the year they lost to the Golden Knights. But Kadri comes back. The problem was every year they get in the playoffs and they get resistance. They get in tough situations and they fold just like they did this year. But the one year they won the cup, they had Nazem Kadri who put the team on his back, and he was a top 10 player in the league that year in this system. And he was probably the biggest reason they won the cup. And they had some decisions to make. They said, well, Val's going to be a superstar. He's finally getting his potential. And they gave him a bunch of money. And they said, we just can't pay because Kadri, other teams wanted Kadri as a true number one. He just is not, that's not who he is. And so the Avalanche made the decision to let Kadri go, keep Val. And they thought Val was going to be the next, I don't know, Mikko Rantanen, whatever, was just going to come out and be a dominant player. He's never been that. Between the addictions and injuries and then just flat out disappearing in this playoffs, he's just not that guy, but you were stuck with him. So it is addition by subtraction, 100%. And the Avalanche are saying, they said, we made a mistake. That's why they traded to get Kadri back. And that's why as soon as they could, they got rid of Val Nichushkin. They are at least looking at the roster and saying, it's not that we're not talented, and it's not that we don't spend the money. It's just we don't have the right chemistry and makeup. It's a cultural issue, and he's not helping. You think that guy's liked in the locker room? You think? No. I think the way he disappeared because of his issues, probably wasn't the best teammate. But they're saying we can't just run it back and stand pat. We're going to make moves, and I like that. So, no, I agree. It is addition by subtraction.
All right, for our final case on the docket, before we hit the commercial break, we're going to swing this one over to the Denver Broncos as the edge rusher versus the Denver Broncos, Jonathan Cooper. The charge is conduct detrimental to a contender. Now, Your Honor, the hype around this team right now is absurd. Bo Nix is finally back on the grass after his bone spur cleanup. Jalen Waddle is resetting the offense, and national writers are actually throwing around the word Super Bowl aspirations, as we've been talking about on the show today. But then Jonathan Cooper goes and gets arrested twice in the month of June. So the defense says you have to let the legal process play out before you can cut a premier pass rusher. The prosecution argues that Sean cannot afford a single off-field distraction when he finally has a roster capable of making a deep playoff run yet again. Now, as the man who knows the law, Dan, how does Sean Payton handle this, and are you issuing a state of execution for Cooper, or do you order for Payton to cut him loose to send a message to the locker room?
Yeah, it's very interesting, and we're going to go even deeper into this at the top of the hour, so I'll just give you a little taste. But we talked about this last week. We had Jeff Wolf on, who was he's a defense attorney, Wolf Law, Colorado, and we kind of unpacked this a little bit. And then I reached out to Zach because Zach the promo was running. Hey, he thinks if he had to bet, if he had to guess that Jonathan Cooper's a goner, like he played his last down with the Denver Broncos. And I talked to Zach. I said, Zach, there's something you're missing here. And he came on the air the next day, last Monday, and he says, I've taken a look at this. And I'm changing my opinion. And that opinion is Jonathan Cooper will actually be back with the Denver Broncos. I know we ran the promo saying what I said before. I'm changing my opinion. So, no, I think Jonathan Cooper will be back. We're gonna have a larger discussion on this in about 20 minutes. That does remind me, though, Sean, I actually don't like the way Zach and James, and I guess Will does this sometimes, but I was listening to the show on Friday, and Zach's on this thing now where he's saying, well, of course I reserve the right to change my opinion if we get new information. Doesn't it, Sean?
It sounds like a little bit of a hedge on my take. I think we should kind of coin that phrase, don't hedge your take, because that's exactly what's happening right
exactly. Now. It's hedging. So that's a very sly, slick way for Zach and James to try and avoid accountability for their opinions, right? Like, so if you said that Sean Payton was not the right choice for the Denver Broncos, you can't just say, well, yeah, I have new information. He's done a pretty good job, so now I'm all okay with that. Well, that's great that you can admit that, but what you're not admitting is your analysis was wrong. You got it wrong. Sean Payton didn't do anything different. He just came in and did his job. So you can't just say, well, I have a new opinion now. You have a new opinion because you were wrong to begin with. And if you're going to spit out these strong opinions and do victory laps when you happen to get something right, don't give me this smarmy, well, I changed my opinion because I have new information. The new information is Sean Payton can still coach and you didn't think he could. So the information is you were wrong and he was right.
So you want the guys to eat a little bit of crow.
Just admit you were wrong, and don't just try and spin it as, because James is always like if. Like he'll talk about if something doesn't happen, then they got to trade Nikola Jokic. So the main point is he's talking about Nikola Jokic, but he gave himself hedging, like you said. But I said if, but you can't do that. You got to be held accountable. That's all. And by the way, there's one other thing I want to finish, and we'll do this on the other side. We'll get to your texts. We'll get to your Sean Ponda YouTube chat stuff. But another key difference between the Avs and Nuggets that I really respect. We'll get into all that coming up next.
The Colorado Avalanche have made a major move.
So we have some breaking news.
The Avs have traded veteran forward Valerie Nichushkin to the Columbus Blue Jackets, ending a 7-year run in burgundy and blue. In return, they get 3 draft picks, giving them 10 total ahead of Friday night's draft. What does this mean for the rest of the offseason? And what additional moves does Super Joe have up his sleeve? Denver Sports 104.3. The Fan.
Jacob's Law, 303-LAW-4040, 303-LAW-4040. I want to take a little time here just to kind of unpack this because it's a little complicated. But I always say check your auto insurance coverage and make sure you have a couple things. Make sure you have UIM coverage so that if somebody hits you, you're not gambling that they either A, have insurance or they have good insurance or enough insurance to cover you if you're seriously injured. Also, you want MedPay. Now, the pushback I get is, Dan, I can't afford to raise my insurance rates by paying for all this extra stuff. Here's a great example. I try and say it's pennies on the dollar, but it's hard without concrete evidence for people to understand that. Well, I had somebody come in this week. I took a look at her policies. She had $25,000 in MedPay, which is a ton of coverage. I'd love to see it. It was $31 for the entire policy. The rest of her insurance was $2,000. The MedPay was $31. She also had $100,000 of UIM coverage. That was about $100 and some dollars as opposed to the $2,000. It's pennies on the dollar, and it protects you if you get hurt seriously by somebody else. I really, really am just asking you, take a look at your policy. And if you have any questions, people do call me about this when I do these spots. I love to talk people through it. So don't be afraid to call me and just say, hey, Dan, what was that you said? It's UIM and MedPay, UIM and MedPay, but just call us 303-LAW-4040.
Is your financial advisor managing your risk or just a spreadsheet? Hi, I'm Jeff Jr., founder of Trajan Wealth. Many financial advisors rely on target date funds, which are one-size-fits-all portfolios that don't know your name, your family, or your goals. And that passive management can leave you dangerously exposed. At Trajan, we look at the whole picture, not just the stocks everyone else buys, but the private market opportunities most advisors ignore. And as fiduciaries, we build a strategy around you, coordinating your investments, tax strategy, and estate into one cohesive plan. Your financial life deserves more than just a generic portfolio. Real planning isn't a stack of statements. It's the confidence of knowing where your income will come from for the next 30 years. Good enough isn't good enough for your family. It's time for a change. Schedule your complimentary consultation today. Call 855-TRAJAN-1. That's 855-TRAJAN-1.
Advisory services through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. Private equity investments require accreditation. Other services through Trajan Estate and Trajan Tax. Additional disclosures at TrajanWealth.com.
Mike Rowe here with another random fact. Those cracks on your walls aren't just cosmetic. They could mean your home is sinking. Whether it's drywall cracks, exterior cracks, or sticking doors or windows, do yourself a favor. Call Groundworks. I spent some time working with these guys, and they're the real deal. Their people are trained and certified to stabilize your foundation. Schedule a free inspection with Groundworks, the foundation and waterproofing experts.
Licensed in all states where work is performed. See website for details.
A lot of personal injury lawyers make claims about how good they are. But how do you know who's the best? At Berg Simpson Injury Lawyers, we've helped Coloradans for 50 years, and our results speak for themselves. We have 29 best lawyers in America, 19 super lawyers, and we're one of the National Trial Lawyers' top 25 most influential law firms. Compare us to other firms, then call Berg Simpson.
If you've been injured, call Berg Simpson for free now at 303-790-2525. BergSimpson.com. Good lawyers changing lives.
Colorado, it's time to take our recycling to the next level. That's why Recycle-On Colorado is bringing you more curbside and drop-off service from peaks to prairies. Guidelines as clear as our skies, so you know what goes where. And the price? As free as gawking at bighorns on I-70. You deserve a recycling system you can count on, like your puffiest winter coat. And we're here to give it to you. Learn more at recycleon.org/Colorado.
Hey guys, Mark Schlereth here from my friends at Spine One. Let me ask you a question. You live with back pain, neck pain. Well, my guys at Spine One, they're an emergency room for back pain with same-day appointments. They'll see you and they'll get the journey started. And that's exactly what I did. Whether it's chronic pain, acute pain, work-related, sports-related, doesn't matter. All you got to do is pick up the phone and start your journey just like I did toward pain-free. 303-367-2225. That's 303-367-BACK. Or as always, you can find them online at spineone.com.
It's the Honorable Judge Dan Jacobs on Denver Sports 104.3.
And by the way, I appreciate you guys because I know there are more of you watching right now than, sometimes we have. But I was saying, hey, you like the Dan Jacobs Show? Maybe you think I'm a nice guy. A lot of people think I'm a nice guy sometimes. No, he's a good guy. I may not agree with him. He's kind of a jerk, but he's a good guy. He's got a good heart. Maybe you think that. And I said, well, if you want to help me out or if you want to help the show out, one of the things that the station management is looking at right now is they're looking at our numbers on YouTube. And so if none of you guys watch on YouTube, then they're going to ding you guys as listeners. They're going to question your loyalty. Now I'm teasing a little bit, but so if you want to help me out, I said, why don't you jump on YouTube and watch for a little while. Put it on your phone, put it on your laptop, whatever. And so, you can signal your passion for the station and for the show. And so that station management will know, hey, we like the Dan Jacobs Show. And you guys have done that and you've responded to that. And so, for example, once an hour at least, we try and go out to the Champonda YouTube chat line. And we got a couple. One says from Jesse Owens, 9774, he's following the policy to the letter of the law. He says, Dan is the man. Well, yeah, that's agreed.
Yeah, you got to butter him up.
You got to butter me up. Then, at Brian Colorado 1584 says, today is National Foodie Day. We need more food talk. Now, I love talking about food. But I had this sneaking suspicion that this is also Brian from Nebraska, who's a loyal RamosLaw.com texter, that he's just also jumped on YouTube. And knowing Brian, I know that he might be trying to pull one over on me. Like my spidey senses, they went up. So I get to the commercial, and I do my Jacob's Law 303 Law 4040 commercial, in which I say, if you remember, I just said, hey, as a public service, what we like to do is remind you to check your insurance coverage to make sure you have UIM and MedPay. That was all I talked about for 60 seconds. So then I turned my mic off, and I want to read Brian's text, but I want to make sure he's not pulling one over on me. So I do the checking. What day is it? Is it really National Foodie Day? But because I suspect he's trying to get one over on me. You know what day it is today? It is not National Foodie Day. By the way, I was 100% correct. National Insurance Awareness Day, which was created to encourage people to review their coverage. Holy cow! Like I was just talking about it, and it turns out that's what day it is. I got a little freaked out there.
I'm a little scarred, Dan, because right after I left here last week, I went out and did some more work, and then I got into a fender bender in which insurance and everything has been involved, and it's been a fun 2 weeks.
Oh, no. So that's what we do. Like, we take that off your plate. We're like, hey, it's stressful enough. You've been hurt. We'll take care of the insurance for you.
Yeah, I'm the one that's being charged here.
You're at fault?
Yeah, so
do you want
the light?
And
as I'm getting ready to go, he's still there. Front of my, of my passenger front side rear wheel is what hit the side of his car. So does that mean that I'm at fault?
Yes, you're at fault.
Because I hit him.
Yeah, because you hit him, and it was kind of in the rear, and a reasonable or prudent driver will not go until.
Yeah, my insurance didn't take my side at all. They said that that I'm at fault, and I was following too close, which is asinine.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the way the law is. But now you also wrecked your Corvette.
Yeah, I mean, I went my whole life without any car accidents, and then I don't know, maybe after 35, like when insurance premiums are supposed to go down, I just somehow find a way to make mine go up every year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, as you get older, it goes down. Yeah, no, mine's, I got teenage drivers. You don't even want to know, dude. You don't even want to know. All right, so we'll get to some text messages and things like that. Thank you for logging on to the Sean Ponda YouTube chat and watching the Dan Jacobs Show. We really appreciate you doing that. You're helping support. You're doing the good work for the show. Let's see this. I'll have to read this during the break because this person is really, really upset with me. So if it's legit, it looks very personal and vicious, but if it's legit, I'll read it.
Yeah, he's kind of got a grievance with you. I didn't go too far into it. I said, I'm going to let those gentlemen sort that out amongst themselves.
Yeah. So we'll get into that. But the point that I wanted to sneak in there when we're doing our judge segment, holding court segment, is I give the Avalanche credit because they've admitted their mistakes. And they really are. Now, a little bit of it is maybe they could use a little more consistency, but they're doing, at least hopefully, a nice job at saying, we had a talented team. We were the best team in the regular season. It didn't work. And pretty much that's the story with us every year, except for the 1 year. So we got to do something different. We have to change the formula. And they did that. They said, Val, we were relying on Val to be a key piece of our championship DNA, and he's clearly not, and he makes a lot of money. Let's get rid of him.
Sackett called this a cultural move because they felt like he was like a disruption in the locker room.
There you go. And so they're not afraid to admit when they're wrong. Nuggets, I'm afraid, is not the same thing. I think the Nuggets – now, if you take Josh Kroenke at his word, like at his press conference, he was saying the right things, like, hey, we got to figure this out. Like something's not working. And we're going to see what they're going to do. But they should have known before they gave Jamal Murray a second max contract. He's not part of the winning formula. He's too inconsistent. but they were drunk off the one championship, and they essentially torpedoed Nikola Jokic's career. They're going to cost him the chance of being a top 10, maybe top 5 all-time NBA player because they don't make good decisions on building not just a talented roster or an expensive roster, but a championship roster. And cog number one in that is got to be Jamal Murray with his complete inconsistency and disappearing act, but you're paying him $50-55 million a year in a sport where the salary cap is like he's like a third of your cap or close to it. Now, can they admit, like they did admit, like with Michael Porter Jr., they gave him the max money and they were able to find a way out of that contract. Great. But do they have the same fortitude with a Jamal Murray and possibly an Aaron Gordon? Not because Aaron Gordon's not, a good guy, a great Denver Nugget. It's just you're paying him. It's kicking in now, and you can't rely on him. So will the Nuggets be able to do, and we're all kind of waiting with bated breath, but will the Nuggets be able to do what the Avalanche appear to be doing, which is at least try? Now, do they know how to do it? I don't know. But they're at least trying. They're at least doing the self-introspection to say, you know what, it's just not working. Regular seasons are great. Just ask the Manchester, is it Manchester? What is the other team Kroenke owns, right? The Arsenal. All right, Jonathan Cooper talk. Coming up next.
The Blue Line is back. The Colorado Avalanche have re-signed defensemen Brett Kulak and Brent Burns. Kulak, the steady shutdown force who locked it down on the back end upon arrival from Pittsburgh last season. And the ageless Burns back for his 23rd season in the middle of an Ironman streak. Now with draft picks in hand and more cap space to play with, what's next as Joe Sakic tries to fill out the roster? Denver Sports 104.3. The Fan.
Don't miss the Tree Farm's Array of Tree Sale, now through July 14th. See what's on sale at thetreefarm.com. Save 25 to 45% on thousands of 3 to 8-year-old shade and flowering trees. Choose from honey locust, linden, maple, oak, flowering crabapple, serviceberry, willow, and more. And save big on thousands of shrubs and perennials. The Array of Tree Sale. Come see.
You take I-25 to exit 235, then 5 miles west to the Tree Farm.
Hi, Dan Cicchini, Done Right Home Improvements. For an 8% scheduling incentive and a special financing rate of 0% APR with 72 equal monthly payments, go to drhi.com. Kitchens, baths, counters, and floors. Finished basements, windows, and doors. You have our word, we'll treat you right at Done Right.
Every hunt tells a story. Let Ty's Taxidermy in Loveland bring yours back to life. Big game, birds, fish skin mounts, and reproduction. Expert detail since 2001. Call 970-669-1119 or visit tystaxidermy.com.
Hey guys, Mark Schlereth here from my friends at Xfinity. And when it comes to your internet, you want the most intelligent, and that's what they provide. The most intelligent Wi-Fi that can hunt down and fix problems. Reliability, well, you want the most reliable Wi-Fi for streaming, gaming, working from home, and coverage that goes wall to wall in your home. How about security? Wi-Fi that's security blanket for your network and reliability. Fiber-powered network with 99.99% reliability, built for speed so you can run multiple devices at once, and Wi-Fi that makes everything in your home tie and work together. Consistency, you can lock in 5 years of predictability. 5 years, the most reliable fiber-powered Wi-Fi with our best equipment. Plus, you can get online with minutes, same-day Wi-Fi. Hey man, that's the price lock guarantee. 5 years, same price, no contracts, no commitments. It's all included. Everything you need, including the data and equipment, the most reliable Wi-Fi. That's Xfinity, guys. Imagine that.
Hey, Green Gobbler here. So you've got a clogged drain in your bathroom. Water in the sink's overstaying its welcome. You're spitting today's toothpaste on top of yesterday's toothpaste. You hope that it'd go away. Yeah, clogs don't just go away. I make them go away. I'm Green Gobbler, the only clog dissolver you need. I'm bleach-free, safe for your pipes, and I work. Guaranteed or your money back. Because I never met a clog that was gonna unclog itself. Green Gobbler. Let the gobbler get it.
If the world were like a Sleep Number mattress, everything would adapt for your comfort. Because as your life changes and your body changes, Sleep Number mattresses adapt and shift to give you personalized comfort night after night. And right now, new mattresses start at $1,500 during our 4th of July sale. To experience a whole new world of comfort, visit a Sleep Number store or go to sleepnumber.com. Sleep Number. To a good life sleep.
Don't care for my local hometown team, ROX rocks heating and air. Don't get fooled by out-of-state private equity corporations that are buying local HVAC companies, offering higher prices, bad service, and shady sales tactics. Don't trust your home to someone out of state when you have the best company right here in town. ROX are experts in local energy rebates and tax credits to save you money only at ROX rocks heating and air. Now play that jingle.
HVAC service, installation, repair. ROX rocks heating and air.
Switching your account numbers is hard. Being forced to switch, even worse. That's why at Belco Credit Union, we want to pay you to switch. From June 1st to August 31st, we're offering a $300 bonus when you open a new checking account with a qualifying direct deposit of $500 or more. They changed your account number. You can change who you bank with. Go to belco.org/switch for full offer details. Insured by NCUA. Membership eligibility required. Conditions and restrictions apply. Belco. Banking for everyone.
KKFN and KKFN HD1 Longmont, Denver. You're listening to Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan. Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan presents the Honorable Judge Dan Jacobs.
All right, final hour. Or the bonus hour, according to Marcello Romano. Third hour of the Easy Like Sunday morning edition of the Dan Jacobs Show. All right, so I'll read this guy's text. I mean, it's childish, it's immature, but ultimately I'll get a dunk on him, so I guess I'll read his text. Typically, we don't read these just because I like when you disagree with me. I like when you have good points, but be respectful.
So are you about to flame him?
No, I'm just gonna try and be polite, even though he was not polite, and just explain to him why he's wrong. Because people, I don't know, in his life, maybe they don't explain this to him. I don't know, because he's like the guy on the bus. You know, my mama says, be careful. Actually, I'm not going to say that. That's rude. I don't want to say it about this guy.
Mom said, do it with kindness.
Yeah, I'm going to do it with kindness. Okay. On the RumbleSlaw.com text line. Okay, Judge Judy. First off, you are a liar, and you lied to the audience. Frankly, you've always been a liar, and I've called you out on it on a number of occasions. The Broncos had many bad years for many decades before Elway was born. Now, wait a minute. What year was John Elway born? Let's just start with that. What year was John Elway born? He was born in 1960. Okay. The Denver Broncos came into existence in, I think it was like 1960. Let's see, the origins. Let's see here. In the summer of 1959, Bob Howsam, so basically 1960. So they were born the same year. So let me just make sure before I call you out. The Broncos had many bad years for many decades before Elway was born. So you want to call me a liar, texter, maybe you should start off with not spewing misinformation the very first part of your argument, which is that the Denver Broncos were really bad before John Elway was born for many decades, mind you. When, in fact, the Denver Broncos simply didn't exist before John Elway was born. They did not exist. You understand that? So you want to call me a liar, and then you're going to do that. All right, so let's see what else you have to say. So that was a lie to blame John Elway. Next, the Broncos were nothing and have done nothing without Elway being in the picture. 3 Super Bowls, 7 appearances. They still have done nothing without John Elway. So your whole premise is wrong from the beginning. You're a liar, a horrible judge, and a worse sports radio mouth. You never know anything about sports of any kind. You'll always put yourself on some sort of imaginary pedestal being right. You're trash. My advice, stick to barbecue because you're an embarrassment to talk radio. Colorado Sports and Sports Radio.
You blew it!
So, again, the problem is not just that you're petulant, that you're immature, it's that you're wrong, too. I did the analysis. If you don't believe me, ask Zach Bye, because he says it, too. Yes, the Broncos had a very tough start. And in particular, the AFL days, they weren't very good. But they weren't as bad, because when I first did the analysis, I said, well, how bad are the Denver Broncos right now? Now, some of what this texter said is true. Elway, first off, I've never said anything bad about Elway as a player. But I've also given John Elway credit, which this guy doesn't want to mention. I've said that if you're going to blame John Elway for as bad as it got, which was, by the way, as a matter of fact, the worst stretch, parts of it were the worst stretch in the team's franchise history. But you also got him credit for the championship and for turning around the Josh McDaniels era. Even though he didn't like the Tebow era, you can give him credit for that. And then, of course, you can give him credit for the Peyton Manning era and the championship. I always give him credit for that. So there is a little smidgen of truth in what he's saying is if you believe that the Denver Broncos didn't do anything last year when they went 15-4, won the AFC, and were with one injury away from going to the Super Bowl. If you believe that's nothing, then I guess you can say, yeah, they still, in a relatively short period of time since John Elway burned down the house with Joe Ellis. Yes, they haven't won a championship. They haven't won a Super Bowl in the 4 years since they've been trying to dig themselves out of the ashes of the John Elway, Joe Ellis era. But I do give him credit for being the best possible. He might be possibly the best general manager in Denver Broncos history, and he's certainly the worst. So if you look at it, when I started to do the analysis, when I first was keeping score, so to speak, I said, well, I have to be careful the way I say this, because if you go all the way back to when they were a brand new franchise in the AFL, they were worse. But as the futility of the second part of the Elway era, so I would say they are in their worst stretch of futility in the NFL history of the franchise. And so I had to qualify it. But eventually they even outgrew that distinction, and they were just even the futility was even worse than any one stretch. I think of it was either 3 or 5 years ever in the history of the franchise, because they may have been bad, but then they jumped up and came out of the ashes one of those years back in the early formative years of the franchise. So I didn't lie. It's factual. I did the research. The fact that you can't accept it and that you love John Elway, great. You're a fan. You're allowed to do that. You look a little silly when you want to call somebody a liar, though, and you have your facts wrong. Period.
How does that make you like when you hear stuff like that? Does that tug at your robe as a judge at all?
No, because it goes with the territory. I can't level harsh criticism, which I think is fair, but it's harsh. And I have fun with other people, right? Like I try not to be personal, like insult people personally, but yeah, I have fun with the media, or I'll say some things. And I'm sure if you're Sean Payton, even though I've endorsed him as being the right guy for the job, but I say things highly critical of him, which he probably doesn't appreciate if he ever hears it. I don't know if he does or he doesn't. Joe Ellis or John Elway certainly probably don't appreciate me calling out their ineptitude and their flaws. But you got to be able to take the heat. And so I can take the heat. And one of the remarkable things is that has happened as I've been doing the show for 8 years. This type of text used to be very common. Initially, it was like 50-50. Half the audience loved me, half the audience felt like this guy. Now, as we've kind of developed a relationship together, the listening audience and myself, most people have come to see, Dan rubbed me the wrong way in the beginning, but first off, he's right most of the time. And two, he is pretty fair. He's not like somebody that's just throwing out hot takes or saying things he doesn't believe in or trying to get under your skin or a contrarian. He's really pretty much objective, and he's right most of the time. And he'll admit when he's wrong. Right. And so now those texts are very few and in between, but I don't take it personal. Usually what I try and do is I'll respond on the text line. And I won't with this guy because this guy's got a problem and it's not worth my time to try. But a lot of times I'll mend those relationships. I'll find common ground. And just the fact that I respond to them personally, they'll be like, you know what? Maybe he's not a bad guy.
Yeah, we guys got to find a common ground over a barbecue recipe of some sort.
Yeah,
something like
but
that.
that's all right. Like, hey, not everybody's going to love you, and I don't need that. So, good question. But as you move on your career and you work your way up the ladder, the celebrity ladder, like you're doing right now, Sean Boyd, you'll get there, and people. Well, I see you mix it up. You get a little hot with these guys when they come at you on the text line, and you just got to know, hey man, you're here to entertain. It comes with the territory to whine and cry because somebody is trying to hurt my feelings. You can only be embarrassed if you choose to be embarrassed, right? That's one of the things.
Right. It's like the truth can't be considered disrespect, right? So it's constructive criticism. We just take it.
Well, but if I'm not bothered by what he says, if I allow him to be in my head, that's one thing. But so for example, he calls me Judge Judy. I know that in his brain, that's the biggest insult that he could come up with. I don't care. You can call me Judge Judy all you want. It really doesn't bother me.
Judge Judy's kind of hot, by the way. But
she's kind of hot? I don't know about that. Her bank account's kind of fat. Holy cow, that lady makes some money. I don't know if she's hot, but, anyway. So that's the way that goes. Just get your facts straight. And you don't need to attack personally. That's all. All right, so we'll go to some other texts here. Wanted to get to... I have nothing to add today, but I like being involved in the show, so I'll just say your show is always better with Sean in there. So there, Lee the amputee. Now, this is an interesting one. I didn't believe it the first time I heard it on the text line because you want to know why? Because it was our friend Brian who will try and dupe us like he did with the National Foodie Day. So he had texted something in earlier in the show saying that Cecil was stealing my lines.
Your taglines.
My taglines. And I'm like, well, that's just Brian. Brian's not, he's pulling my leg. Now, is this Brian texting it in again? No. So this is somebody else saying this. Hey, Dan, did you hear Cecil said something along the lines, if you want to know what other shows will be talking about in 6 months, listen to Dover and Cecil today. I think it was when you were in Ireland. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
Who rules?
I mean, it surprised me. I mean, if he did that, that's just blatant theft. Because I know it drives them all nuts.
Yeah, Dan, I'll be hearing them kind of punch on you when you're not around, man. Like, I'll be kind of wondering about that. So, are we good? Like,
we're good. I love all these guys, and I give them a hard time. So if they want to give me a hard time, that's one thing. But Cecil, my man, you can't just rip off my stuff.
That's copyright infringement.
That's just copyright infringement right there, brother. That's my line. And first off, it's true, right? And then second, you can't just steal it. And it's funny because I know because Zach has said things to me, Stokely said things to me in private, but it drives him crazy when I say that. But it probably bugs him because it's true. And I actually take a little bit of pride in it because I feel like a Papa Bear, right? I hear so many things going on during the week, and I'm like, yep, they're listening to the Dan Jacobs Show. They're listening to the Dan Jacobs Show. And that's cool because it's, they say imitation is the finest form of flattery. And that's the way I take it. But dang, dog, you're just going to straight up steal it? I don't know about that. Now, along these lines, I wanted to, so the rest of this segment, I wanted to get into this because last week on the show, in fact, you and I had a pretty good discussion about it. Jonathan Cooper. And my point was, having heard Zach's promo that Jonathan Cooper was basically played his last down for the Denver Broncos, I dug a little deeper into it. And so we talked about it on this show. But I'll be honest, this show doesn't have the reach that The Drive has or the weekday shows have. I'm honest. I'm self-aware. So a lot of times I will talk about things on this show, like, for example, the Jonathan Cooper thing or the Nikola Jokic. All three shows talked about it this week. We talked about that 2 or 3 months ago. As far as McKinnon and Jokic, are they top 10 players if they only win one title? That was a favorite topic on the station this week. Dude, we talked about that 2 or 3 months ago. It's fine. But with this Jonathan Cooper thing, I just felt it needed to get out there because not that and Zach Zach did the exact same thing I'm about to do because we just want to have an honest conversation, and we don't want it to sound like we are condoning a man hitting a woman or domestic violence or physical things or anything that if Jonathan Cooper did that, we're not condoning that. But there was a piece here that needed to be corrected because the only difference, like when I left for Ireland, well, he had been arrested once, and I come on the show, and I said it's an unfortunate situation. You hate to see it. He's probably going to get suspended, but they'll move on, and hopefully he'll be a better man. He'll make better decisions and all that stuff. Well, then the thing about the protection order came out, that he violated this no contact provision of the protection order, and that was when everybody was like, dude, it's over. Sorry. He got arrested for it, and he got arrested, so therefore he's guilty, and dude's got to go.
Yeah, I don't see any due process here. I truly don't. And I hate to do that because I've always sided with players, and I don't have any bias, but, I mean, the writing's on the wall, Dan, and this is an unfortunate situation that I don't think anybody's getting around.
Well, there's going to be consequences, but he should get the consequences for what he actually did. And he didn't violate a no contact order because there was no contact order, which it's a little bit complicated, but it's not the way it was portrayed in the media because they were trying to portray it that he was out of control and that he texted her 20 times and he was talking about sex and he knocked on her door and that made him an out of control villain abuser. When we don't know for certain what happened, what the reality was that he probably wasn't. What it sounds like to me is that they got into a fight and he was trying to make up. Now, 20 texts is a lot or little. I don't know how many times, like what time frame that was.
That's overbearing, Dan.
Well, hold on a second. Do you want to go to your phone? Do you want to look at how many times did your wife text you this week?
Oh, probably less than 10. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, then you're not texters. I had a real estate client one time. I counted it up. We worked on a housing deal it only took 2 or 3 months. 1,400 text messages, right? Because some people, they don't just like, what I prefer is if you want to text me, get your thoughts together, text me a paragraph. Hey, do you want to get for dinner tonight? If so, how about how 7 o'clock work over at the Deer Trail Meat Co. restaurant, which doesn't exist, right? Put it all out there. This dude would go, hey, Dan, how you doing? Send. I was thinking about this address. Send. Do you think we could go see it at 6 o'clock tonight? Send. Like every thought that went through his brain was a text. So to him, 20 texts is like five minutes. So 20 texts could be a lot or a little. And by the way, it wasn't this overly sexual thing. It was hey, you want to meet up? You want to get back to, like they're in a relationship. And he went to her house and he knocked on the door. He wasn't knocking on the door, threatening her, trying to escalate the things. What it sounds like it's happened to a lot of us. We got into a fight, you kiss and make up. He was trying to kiss and make up. He wasn't, there's no evidence, at least now, that he was threatening or intimidating or harassing. Right? But it's alleged he was violating a no contact order. And what we know is that on the mandatory protection order that he received, there's 10 boxes of things if they're checked, you're not allowed to do them. Number one, no matter what, you cannot threaten them, harass them, try and influence them, coerce them. You can't do that. You can't. We can all agree on that. And then there's other boxes like you can't go near the residence. If that's checked, sorry, you got to stay away from the house. You got to stay 100 yards away. You can't have firearms. Those have to be checked, and then that's given to you as the defendant so you know what to do. Because to violate that order, it has to be intentional. So, for example, even if it says you can't be within 100 yards of that person, if it's incidental that you're not even aware of it, so let's say you have an MPO and you go to Walmart, and that person comes into Walmart after you came in and calls the cops and says, well, Sean violated the protection order, that's not a violation. They would have to prove that you had intent to violate that restraining order. Now, there is an argument that is recent. I think within the last year, they changed the statute that says every mandatory protection order will now say that there's no contact, but that's not on the form that the court gave out. And so there are due process issues, because if you don't give notice to a defendant, it may not be sufficient to say, well, yeah, but we changed the statute that's on the books. So how can you say give because the court order should trump everything, right? Like if the court says to you, Mr. Cooper, I can be in no uncertain terms, there is this order and I've signed it as the judge and here it is, and this is what you can and cannot do. You can't hide the ball like that and then convict him of a crime that was not in the court order. And the reason that it's the court order is set up that way is, for example, not all DV cases are the same. So, for example, in this case, it originally started out, they were both at fault. And they both probably had MPOs, right? And then eventually they let her off the hook. But here's an example that I bring up. The arrest is mandatory. If there's a call and there's an allegation of and all domestic violence means is, it doesn't mean actually even have to be physical violence. It just has to mean that the people involved in the incident are in an intimate relationship.
And had a disturbance.
Right? And there's a potential and there's an allegation. So I always bring up the story of Patrick Waugh. Patrick Waugh, you've seen Patrick Waugh. He runs hot. He's got a temper. He is, when he was a new Avalanche, he wasn't young in his career, but when he was just kind of getting here in Denver, he got into a fight, an argument with his wife. And he slammed a door. And it damaged the door, or the door jammed somehow, right? His mother-in-law, who was in the house, got scared and called the cops. Cops show up, even though I don't think his wife admitted, like, no, he didn't hit me or anything. But the way the law is structured is if there's an allegation and you admit you're in an intimate relationship and there's property damage, it's non-discretionary. You're going to jail, which is why the thing with Vaughn got special treatment. It was a compulsory, mandatory arrest for Vaughn, and he got special treatment because he's Von Miller when this happened to him. Because the cops were like, oh, crap, it's Von Miller. They called the new DA, and the new DA's like, I ain't going up against Harvey. No, I ain't doing that. And so he was not charged. He got special treatment. Okay? Jonathan Cooper did not get that special treatment. They were both mandatorily arrested. But I go back to the Patrick Waugh thing. Why I bring up Patrick Waugh is they're married. They're in a relationship. They live in the same house. There was no violence. Neither one of them, because this is very common. Things happen and the people still care about each other and they still want to be in the relationship. But sometimes the court does check the no contact box. And then it puts them in a bad spot because they co-parent together or they are parents together and they're married and they live in the same house and they don't have money to go pay for a separate residence and they don't want to be apart. They needed a little cooling off period. Patrick Waugh did not need a no contact order from his wife. Nor did his wife want, to my belief, my recollection, nor did she want one. But some things are automatic. So the reason they fashion these MPOs in a way that says, all right, let's look at the facts of the case. So, for example, are firearms an issue for Jonathan Cooper? No. So they didn't have to order him to turn in his firearms because he didn't have any. But some guys do. So there's conditions that the court is supposed to look at and say, is this a problem? And check the appropriate boxes. I saw the court document. Only one box was checked, which was the least invasive, which was you can't harass her, hurt her, threaten her, molest, any of that stuff. That was it. Now, after they arrested him a second time, they gave him a new one that had like 5 or 6 boxes checked. So to convict this guy simply because the prosecutor says he did something wrong, and his lawyer, Harvey Steinberg, argued in court, he did not do anything wrong. There was no contact order. And I brought up the case, and Zach did a good job of illustrating this. I brought up the case of Johnny Bolin. They claim Jonathan Bolin had his own thing, lost his appeal, right? And so he got in trouble in California, and the judge and the prosecutor said, you violated your probation. And his lawyer said, no, I didn't. No, he didn't. He was technically not on probation until this event happened. And so the media ran with it and said, oh, here's Johnny Bolin. Here he is, spoiled, entitled kid. He didn't even report to his probation officer, and now he's out of state. He shouldn't have left the state, and he's breaking the law, and this and that. He violated his probation. Well, as it turned out, the courts agreed with Harvey Steinberg, who's the same lawyer that is now saying Jonathan Cooper did not have a no-contact order. And they agreed that Johnny Bolin was not on probation. And so those charges had to be dismissed, and I would expect these charges to be dismissed when they get into the meat of it. So if that's what happens, how all of a sudden is he going to be dismissed from the team? If the reason everybody jumped on his back and said, well, now that's the last straw, he can't be here anymore, if that wasn't true, do you still give him the same punishment now that we know it's not true? Because that's what you're doing, Sean.
Well, no,
you're saying he should have known better. It doesn't matter if he was innocent. He's got to go.
Sean's doing a little bit of I'm taking away the legal side of it, and now I'm looking at how he got his hand caught in the cookie jar. If you're one of those gentlemen, he got in trouble with this young lady because of infidelity. Am I correct in that?
That's what we're told.
Okay, so with that being said, I'm looking at it from the personal standpoint of you're Jonathan Cooper. You know the world is your oyster. You just got a nice $60 million contract. There's not too much that you can't do as an ex-player. I know that I can have whatever I want, and if he's already getting in trouble for having infidelity, the one thing he could have did was easily just ex-nayed that situation with the lady that he got.
She stole his phone.
No, well, I need to leave
He
her
couldn't just
alone.
leave. That's the whole point. She took his phone. She threw it to try and break it, and he said, well, fine, I'm going to do that to you. I understand, Sean. Hey, it wasn't smart, and if he was a perfect human being, none of this would ever happen.
Oh, cut her off and then go find another young lady.
Well, yeah. Like he never should have cheated to begin with. But infidelity in professional sports, dude, you know how rampant that is.
That's the norm. So then
it's the
switch
norm.
her up.
I'm not
Switch
excusing
her up.
it. I'm not condoning it. But what you're saying is he should have been perfect, and he wasn't perfect, and now he's got to lose $60 million.
I don't say he needs to lose the whole 60, but he might need to sit this year out.
All right. So interesting thing that was part of the conversation with Phil and Zach By, which I was like, dude, that's not the way things work. He's probably going to get suspended, but then they're like, well, is he going to be a extra super suspended, or are the Penners going to do the Walton Penner Group going to do their own thing to Jonathan Cooper? We'll talk about that next.
The Colorado Avalanche have made a major move.
So we have some breaking news.
The Avs have traded veteran forward Valeri Nichushkin to the Columbus Blue Jackets, ending a 7-year run in burgundy and blue. In return, they get 3 draft picks, giving them 10 total ahead of Friday night's draft. What does this mean for the rest of the offseason? And what additional moves does Super Joe have up his sleeve? Denver Sports 104.3. The Fan.
DeerTrailMeatCo.com, DeerTrailMeatCo.com. Here's how it works. You go to the website, DeerTrailMeatCo.com. You check out things out, and you decide, hey, do I want to try this? You probably will. You can do different bundles, right? You can do an eighth of a cow, eighth of beef, and it's just a nice little selection. They'll deliver that to your front door with a money-back guarantee. Or you can say, you know what? I like a lot of meat. I got a big family. I need the beef. We'll do a quarter cow, half cow, or you can do the whole thing. We had one Dan Jacobs Show listener. They had a restaurant. They came out. They said, we want to pick out our cows, and they picked out 2 or 3 cows. That was cool, right? But you just pick out what you want, and then you get tremendous savings. They deliver it to your front door at up to 70 or 80% off what you're paying at the grocery store. And then you can actually get steak again. You can afford to eat steak because it's not $20 or $30 a pound like it is at the big box stores or even the warehouse stores. So I invite you to check it out. The website will get you all sorts of information so you can get started. DeerTrailMeatCo.com. That's DeerTrailMeatCo.com.
When it's time to sell your home, you hope your agent knows the market, timing, pricing, interest rates, neighborhoods, staging open houses, understanding contracts, completing paperwork. Oh, and can actually help guide you on your big move. Don't hope, know. When you hire a Weichert agent, you can be sure you've got a partner who will guide you every step of the way, from listing to closing and everything in between. Weichert, dream, move, home. Each Weichert franchised office is independently owned and operated.
Hey guys, Mark Schlereth here from my friends at Xfinity. Usually when something sounds way too good to be true, it is. Imagine someone says you can cut your mobile bill in half. Sounds like a fantasy, but with Xfinity Mobile, it's a real deal. Because when you have Xfinity Internet, you can cut your mobile bill in half. Plus, try Xfinity Mobile free for a year. No commitment. That's a lot of streaming, sharing, scrolling, and whatever else you can do with your phone. All for half the price and none of the commitment. What that means, you'll save big over Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile. Now all you have to do is think about how you'll spend all that extra money. Call 1-800-XFINITY, go to XfinityMobile.com, or visit a local Xfinity store to switch today. Xfinity. Imagine that. Restrictions apply. Savings compare one line of Xfinity Mobile Select to comparable plans from T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T as of 3/24/26. Taxes and fees extra. $30 monthly discount limited to new mobile customers only. After 12 months, regular rates apply.
Who helps keep Colorado's wildlife wild? Our people do.
Hello, my name is Patricia. I've been with Chevron for over 17 years.
Her team uses GPS to track where mule deer and pronghorn roam throughout the seasons. This data helps us take their habitats into consideration when planning our operations.
When we created our comprehensive wildlife and conservation program, it was really about what was possible.
Learn more at colorado.chevron.com.
Hey guys, Mark Schlereth here from my friends at Spine One. Let me ask you a question. You live with back pain, neck pain? Well, my guys at Spine One, they're an emergency room for back pain with same-day appointments. They'll see you and they'll get the journey started. And that's exactly what I did. Whether it's chronic pain, acute pain, work-related, sports-related, doesn't matter. All you got to do is pick up the phone and start your journey just like I did toward pain-free. 303-367-2225. That's 303-367-BACK. Or as always, you can find them online at spineone.com.
This summer, all roads lead to Groove Toyota in Inglewood during our Summer on Us sales event. Choose from hundreds of pre-owns, 40 under 15 grand, from the oldest family-owned Toyota dealership in the Denver Metro. See the selection at GrooveToyota.com. More than 100 used Toyotas, including Toyota Certified. Reserve your vehicle now at GrooveToyota.com. Start here, go anywhere. Offer expires 6/7/26. Not all will qualify. Restrictions apply with approved credit. Call 720-961-4465 for complete details.
You're listening to the Honorable Judge Dan Jacobs on Denver Sports, 104.3 The Fan.
All right. We'll get up to the text line and the Sean Honda YouTube chat line. This one says, Zach's opinion is flawed. He's using legal technical jargon to diminish what he did. If he gets off legally, then all is good. That's not true. I understand why you may think that, texter, and I'm not coming at you, but that's not true. It's not a technicality. If he didn't do it. And that's one of the problems with that. When I was a defense attorney, that was one of the problems I had, because oftentimes it wasn't that the person didn't do anything wrong. Oftentimes they did something wrong. But that's not what they were charged with. They would get overcharged to the extreme. And what would happen a lot of times, which is a big problem with our system, is, especially if you've never been in trouble before, I struggle to explain it other than I can explain it like this. If you've never been in jail before and you get charged with a bunch of stuff and you can't make bail, you will do or say anything to get out of the cage. You just will.
That's a fact.
Right? And I've seen it happen several times where I go to visit clients who had never been in there before, and their mental, you can see it in their eyes. Their eyes are like, if you knew them before and then you see them then, it's like they're glazed over and they're in a state of panic because they're just not used to it. So then the prosecutor says, all right, well, we'll make a deal with you. You just got to plead guilty, but we'll put you on probation. You'll plead guilty to something you didn't do just to get out. Or a lot of times what they'll do is they'll overcharge and then you can't make bail. And then after you've been in there 6 months, the prosecutor will come to you and say, what are we doing here? You'll just plead guilty and I'll tell the judge to give you time served. And the person's going to go, well, if that gets me out of here, I'll do it. And they'll plead guilty because they get out. But that's not even what's happened here. Like, Jonathan Cooper, if the courts agree, and I think they will, I think those charges will get dismissed as far as the violating the protection order, because I think my legal analysis says he didn't do anything wrong. He did not believe there was a no contact order, and in fact, there wasn't on the paper he got, and that's what Harvey is arguing in court. There was a protection order, not a no contact order, and that nothing that he did. In fact, that's what he told the cops when they were arresting him. He says, "I didn't have a no contact order." I don't know if he brought up the paperwork and showed it to him or not, but I've seen it. I went into the court file and looked. The prosecution is going to argue that they're going to argue the technicality. They're going to say, well, even if he didn't intend to, he technically violated the law. Maybe not the piece of paper he got, but he violated the law. If you want to go down that route, because what this texter is saying is, oh, well, Jonathan Cooper did something bad, but he may get off on that part. No, it's the opposite. The opposite is he likely did nothing wrong in that instance to get arrested, but the prosecution, to save face, is going to point to some amendment that nobody knows about and try and convict him anyway. Now, do you think that's right? Do you think that's what our government is supposed to do? Is convict people and arrest them on a technicality? No, it's not right. That's not what their job is. That's not what they're here to do. Taking somebody's liberty outside of killing them is the most severe punishment a government can do to its people, its citizens. So you should not take it lightly, just lock people up and throw them in the state's cage and they go, oh, well, my bad. Or, well, I want to save face, so I'm going to go after him anyway. I'm going to try and convict him anyway. But it happens all the time. The city of Parker just had to pay $24 million because they did that to somebody, and he lost his job. And he was a very well-to-do person, and it cost him dearly financially. And guess what? The city of Parker had to pay a lot of money for that because you're not supposed to falsely imprison people. So if we want to talk about technicalities here, the side that's going to argue the technicality is the government, is the prosecutors. And that generally doesn't work with Harvey. That's why he's so good. So that's the point. I'm not defending anything that he gets convicted of, and he's probably going to get suspended. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about was I thought Zach and Phil did a good job talking about this on Monday, but they kept bringing up this notion that the Walton Penner Group was going to do something in addition to whatever the league was going to do. And I'm just here to tell you, folks, that's not going to happen. I think the only thing that the Broncos could do is I think maybe they could cut him. I think they would have to pay the guaranteed money, though. I don't think they could just go, well, you got arrested, therefore we're just going to terminate your contract. I think they would have to abide by the terms of the contract with guaranteed money. The CBA will dictate what punishment he will receive. I don't think the Broncos can go, well, we're going to punish you by also doing this. So I think he'll get his league punishment. And by the way, I don't know when that's going to come because he's going to fight this. And he may win. One of the things that Zach and I talked about was, okay, we assume that he's guilty. We assume, based on what we've read in the media, that he's guilty. Well, I'm going to tell you that Harvey Steinberg is already laying the defense that won when he got Brandon Marshall off, which was this was a mutual thing. It was unfortunate. That's what's happening here. She's saying he choked me. And by the way, at the time, the police didn't believe her, is what I guess I'm understanding from what Zach had heard some things I hadn't heard. But at the time of this incident with Jonathan Cooper, they said, honey, not honey, that's disrespectful, but lady, the evidence is not matching with what you're saying. And so, one, I think it was mandatory they both got arrested because she admitted she tried to damage his phone. Remember when I told you earlier, if there's property damage there's a DV allegation, it's mandatory. So I think it was mandatory. They both had to be arrested. They don't have to be charged. They have to be arrested. So she was arrested too. And so Harvey's going to say, hey, man, this was unfortunate, But she was the one that was mad. She was the one that lost her temper. She was the one that came after him. She was also arrested, but we're only here because he's the bad guy? Well, I'm just going to tell you, that was a winning argument at trial, and Brandon Marshall was acquitted. Exact same, not the exact same facts, but it's essentially a very similar fact pattern. So the NFL has to decide, are we just going to give them 4 games or 6 games and call it a day, or are they going to that was one thing Phil did not have right. He keeps saying that they're going to have a trial on July 22nd. No, they're not. And my guess is there will not be a trial. There is a disposition hearing right at the very beginning of training camp, and my guess is they're going to say, let's set this for trial, and this thing will be tried at the soonest in the offseason. So it depends on what the league decides. He may get to play the entire year unscathed.
I think that's an unhealthy spot for him to be in mentally.
Yeah.
Knowing that that's dangling over his head, you may not get the best of Jonathan Cooper's services this season.
Yeah. I agree. But I'm one of those guys, I like to deal with things. Right now, for example, remember Ken Lay from Enron? He delayed things as much as he could, and I think the day or week before he was supposed to report to prison, he dropped dead of a heart attack. He got off scot-free. In fact, I think his convictions were erased. Maybe not, because his appeals weren't done. I don't remember. But yeah, some people just like to drag these things out. I'd rather take my medicine and move on with my life. That's just the way I am. But if you're talking about, by the way, if he gets convicted, he's getting a minimum of 6 games. But if he doesn't get convicted, he may only get 4 games. Well, that's money, man. That's 2 game checks that you're talking about. So maybe he does want to drag it out. I don't know. But it's not even a foregone conclusion that he misses any time this season. In fact, if I had to guess, I would guess he doesn't miss any time because they're going to push the trial out. And then it's on the NFL to decide or come to an agreement, because they could possibly come to an agreement. All right, we'll do the 4 games, whatever. But yeah, he may not miss any time. Not only is it, because Zach, by the way, credit to Zach, he says, I've changed my mind. After looking at the court documents and researching Harvey's magic and this and that, I don't think he's a goner as a Denver Bronco. And I don't think he is either. All right, final. By the way, did I pull off the Husband of the Year already? Is it a wrap on Husband of the Year, and we're not even to July yet? I think I might have it locked up. We'll talk about that coming up next as well.
The Blue Line is back. The Colorado Avalanche have re-signed defensemen Brett Kulak and Brent Burns. Kulak, the steady shutdown force who locked it down on the back end upon arrival from Pittsburgh last season. And the ageless Burns back for his 23rd season in the middle of an Ironman streak. Now with draft picks in hand and more cap space to play with, what's next as Joe Sakic tries to fill out the roster? Denver Sports 104.3. The Fan.
Jacob's Law, 303 Law 4040. I'm actually just want to talk to you about the best free meal in Denver. You know we cook up the good stuff for the best free meal in Denver. And man, July snuck up on me. I didn't realize 4th of July was this next coming up week. So we have something special, and I want to shout out Mike Daborski at Old Style Sausage. They're a sausage company actually founded by a former Denver Bronco, but they make these meats that are they're sausages that are made for the smoker, and they have all sorts of different varieties, but they're outstanding, and they're making a nice donation. So we thought, it's the 4th of July. What should we do for the best free meal in Denver? How about some brats and some sausages, like a cookout? Well, that's coming up this week, and it got away from me, and I forgot to ask him until late last week. They are making a special order so that we can have the Old Style sausages available for you for the best free meal in Denver this week. Of course, you also get a week's worth of groceries. You just pull up, you pop the trunk, and we fill up your trunk with free groceries, and then we pass you these delicious Old Style sausages through the window. That'll be coming up this Thursday. Want to say thanks again to Mike Daborski and Old Style Sausage.
Hey everybody, Cecil Lammy here from my friends at SodaDietAndNutrition.com. 866-800-SODA is the phone number. And 5 years ago, I lost 60 pounds. 60 pounds gone, lost forever, and never coming back. Why? Because of the dynamic diet that their nutritionist specifically trained, customized a dynamic diet for each person like they did for me. They can do it for you as well. Everyone has different food sensitivities, responses, weaknesses, lifestyle habits, and behaviors, so a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work. Dynamic Diet highlights that personalized approach, and it's really that personal touch that takes soda and puts them over the top. Online, soda, dietandnutrition.com. 60 pounds down 5 years ago, and I've never gained it back. And those 60 pounds came off naturally. There's no mystery pills, no chemicals in my body. I'm not giving myself a shot every day. I'm eating the right things at the right time every single day. Because of soda, dietandnutrition.com, soda is, everybody say it with me, their state of the art.
Don't care for my local hometown team, ROX Rocks Heating and Air. I have known the Rocks team for years. They have serviced my own house. Right now, out-of-state private equity corporations are buying local HVAC companies, providing higher prices, bad service, and shady sales tactics. When it comes to your heating and cooling needs, go with the local Colorado team I know and trust. ROX Rocks Heating and Air. Now play that jingle.
HVAC service, installation, repair. ROX Rocks Heating and Air.
Switching your account numbers is hard. Being forced to switch, even worse. That's why at Belco Credit Union, we want to pay you to switch. From June 1st to August 31st, we're offering a $300 bonus when you open a new checking account with a qualifying direct deposit of $500 or more. They changed your account number. You can change who you bank with. Go to belco.org/switch for full offer details. Insured by NCUA. Membership eligibility required. Conditions and restrictions apply. Belco. Banking for everyone.
Legacy means tomorrow matters. Hi folks, Dan Cicchini, Done Right Home Improvements. Tomorrow, next week, next month, 10 years from now matters. My wife Susan and I started Done Right in our garage in 1985, and our family has always been focused on legacy. What we do, how we do it, how we treat people matters. As a result, we've grown to be one of the largest companies of our kind in Colorado, specializing in kitchens, baths, counters, floors, finished basements, windows, and doors. Here's our son Todd.
Dad, doing what's right shapes all of our projects. Whether a first-class kitchen renovation, a turnkey bathroom remodel, a full-service basement finish, or new windows and doors. We'll wow you with your project, your experience, and with an 8% scheduling incentive and a special financing rate of 0% APR with 72 equal monthly payments. Now couldn't be a better time. Dad?
Kitchens, baths, counters, and floors, finished basements, windows, and doors. You have our word, we'll treat you right at Done Right. Reserve your spot. Go to drhi.com. Thanks for listening.
It's the Honorable Judge Dan Jacobs on Denver Sports, 104.3 The Fan.
All right, final segment of the Dan Jacobs Show. Now, good thing is bonus time this week because I am hosting, because it's a holiday, I believe I'm hosting Thursday and Friday, plus Saturday and Sunday. So, leading up to the 4th of July holiday, I'm hoping, because we did this on Juneteenth, I'm hoping Dante will be there at least one day, and then I may have a second co-host on Friday, but you'll get 4 days of me. Now, I knew when I read that one guy's text that, there would be some people that wanted to come to my defense. I'm not going to read all these texts. Thank you for the kind words. But I do want to read this one just because, again, it proves me right. Because, I'm sure I sound obnoxious when I say, oh, yeah, when I first started, everybody hated me, but now they all love me. So I am going to read this text. Mr. Jacobs, I was not a fan of yours when you got back on the radio 8 years ago, and I was belligerent about it on the text line. Now I can't wait for Sunday to hear the show. The negativity you are getting, in my opinion, will just turn into future fans. Thanks for the great radio. Well, thank you. As you know, flattery will get you everywhere on this show. Now, I teased it. I got to pay off the tease. Speaking of flattery, speaking of patting myself on the back, I think it's a wrap. I think I secured Husband of the Year already in July because coming up on Friday, it's my lovely wife, Kimberly. You heard of her from 303 Law 4040 fame. It's her birthday. And what I did last year for her birthday was, now she had a favorite show growing up. It was The Adventures of Superman, The Adventures of Lois and Clark. And Dean Cain was the actor that played Superman. So, that's always kind of been her celebrity crush. Now, a lesser man, in fact, I even wonder about you, Sean. I wonder if you might be
about me, Dan.
a little insecure on this, right? Like if your wife just had a crush on somebody, right? Would you get all like offended? Would you be insecure about it?
I've been there before, sir.
Yeah.
I was offended. I wasn't offended. I kept it P and I let it roll off my shoulders.
All right. So I'm just saying, like I'm pretty secure, right? So last year what I did was, knowing that she'd always had this celebrity crush on Dean Cain. I went to Cameo, that site where you can, get your celebrities and pay them X amount of money, and they'll do a video for you. So I had Dean, her favorite celebrity crush, Dean Cain, do a cameo for her, and she was just tickled pink. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good husband, right? Yeah. So I'm like, well, how am I going to top that this year? Particularly when I'm not going to be with her on her birthday because I'm going to be working here, and she's going to be up in Steamboat. So what I did was, now, loyal listeners of the Dan Jacobs Show know that I have started on my burgeoning acting career. So I said, well, let me see, what can I do here? I was looking into how can I one up what I did last year. So I bought her a publicity photo. Remember back in the day, they would do, professional photos for shows, and they'd give them out to like affiliates and things like that. So it's a professional photo with the special lettering and stuff at the bottom, from the network, from ABC or whatever. So I gave her that last night, and she's like, oh, that's really nice. But that's not one-upping last year. That would be a step back. And I said, well, honey, that is nice, but the problem is that's not autographed. She goes, it's not. And I said, so what we're going to do is we're going to go later next month in July. We're going to go to Las Vegas. We're going to meet Dean Cain. We're going to have dinner with Dean Cain. He's going to autograph that for you. And then we're going to spend 3 days on the set, and I'm actually getting a role in the movie. Come on now. Come on. Come on now. So I think that's pretty darn good. In fact, it was one of those things where I'm expecting her to start crying or jumping up and down or whatever. I don't know, that maybe it's just got to sink in. But I just, I'm like, I got the award all wrapped up. Now, here's the problem.
You spoiled her beyond belief now, sir. Now you can't top yourself next year.
Yeah. Now how do I top that? But here's the one sticky part. So I'm going back and forth with the director and the producer and all that stuff of this movie. And I get to log into the cast portal, and they've already assigned me a role. And the role, so I'm going to get a speaking line, and I'm going to get some IMDb credit, which is super cool, right? But the role is, I don't know my lines yet, but my role is cadet number 8. I'm cadet number 8. I don't know.
It's an Army movie?
No.
Army show?
It's not. I don't know how the cadets figure into this or whatever. But my first thought was, I feel like I'm probably a little old to be a cadet, right? Like we're gonna have to get hair and makeup.
You just enlisted late, sir. You're a late bloomer.
Well, you know what the funny thing about that is, though, I tried to get information on enlisting in my 30s. I said, because I thought, well, maybe I can help pay for law school. I can serve my country. I can do this or that. And so I think it was the Marines or something. You put in this thing, they give you a free pair of sunglasses, and they would give you more information about enlisting. And I filled out the form. I sent it in through the old mail, and I got something back in the mail not that long later, which was, Dan, thank you for your interest in serving your country, blah, blah, blah. You're too old. Here's your free sunglasses. And that was it. And that was in my 30s. That was, 15 years ago or whatever. So as at least one branch of the service, I am already, in fact, too old. But I guess that'll be the magic of the movie. I guess they'll find a way to squeeze me in as a cadet. So I don't know. That was the thing. But we're gonna go do that. That's fun. You just say it in my ear. I can't read it. All right. So we're just wrapping up here. Sean, what do you think? Am I too old to play the cadet?
I think that obviously you playing the cadet, you're gonna shave your beard first off. I mean, your newly found goatee and things that may have to go away.
Definitely because it's gray,
right? Well, no, I'm just saying just for the part, because in if it's an military role that you're playing, those guys all had shaved faces, so that's coming.
Yeah, well, and the reason I grew out the goatee, see, if you're watching on the YouTube, Sean Ponda YouTube channel, I do have a goatee, but tonight after the show at 6:30, I have what they call it a casting call, right? No, not casting call, a call time. I have a call time. I'm learning all the lingo. I'm playing, which is a little bit weird because a lot of these roles I'm getting, I'm auditioning for one role and I'm getting a different role. So I'm a part of this new series of some sort. It's kind of, I don't know if we're doing a pilot or whatever, but it's a court series. It's kind of like Night Court. It's like a funny take on Night Court or whatever. I think I applied to be the judge, and I got the role of the bailiff, which I was a little bit, but I'm a judge. Like, and there's lawyers in the show, and there's a judge in the show, and I'm playing basically the security guard. So I have to go play that tonight, and I thought, well, if I want to look a little meaner, a little more mature, because I look incredibly young. I got a baby face if I don't at least have a little facial hair, right? See that, guys? So I'm thinking I need the facial hair, but yeah, you're right. Like in a month from now, when I go to do this other role, I'll have to shave.
I mean, I think you're doing you and your lady a big service here, right? You're gonna take her. You're getting two birds with one stone here, figuratively speaking, by taking her to meet her crush, which is kind of crazy. Because let's say my lady's into Ricky Martin.
Yeah.
If mommy's into Ricky Martin, I'm not taking her to go meet Ricky Martin.
I knew it. Oh, the funny thing is, real quick before we wrap this up, my mom was very submissive to my dad, right? And my dad was the alpha and all that stuff. Well, she loved Tom Jones. He took her to a Tom Jones concert, and you know what she did? She jumped the fence after the concert. You know, remember, he used to go up and kiss ladies in the crowd on the lips and all that stuff.
Yeah, he was Chris Brown before Chris Brown.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
she jumped the railing and left my dad for like 1 or 2 hours and went backstage with Tom Jones back in the 60s or 70s.
What?
You would have lost your mind, man.
Oh, yeah. She would have been packed up after that, respectfully.
All right, we're out of time. Thanks for being a part of the show. We will talk to you later this week, Thursday, for the Dan Jacobs Show, filling for Dover and Cecil.
He's Judge Dan J. He doesn't mean no harm, but he doesn't mind telling you he's right, you are wrong. He's reading your text, he's taking your calls. It's the Dan Jacobs Show, and he'll decide what the law will allow. He's making your day the only way he knows how, by giving you the facts, cutting through the BS now. He's Judge Dan J. He doesn't mean no harm, but he doesn't mind telling you he's right and you are wrong.
The Colorado Avalanche have made a major move.
So we have some breaking news.
The Avs have traded veteran forward Valeri Nichushkin to the Columbus Blue Jackets, ending a 7-year run in burgundy and blue. In return, they get 3 draft picks, giving them 10 total ahead of Friday night's draft. What does this mean for the rest of the offseason? And what additional moves does Super Joe have up his sleeve? Denver Sports 104.3. The Fan.
Did you really think Pure Talk was just going to sit back and watch America turn 250 years old without doing something awesome to celebrate? Of course not. That's why they're raising $250,000 for America's Warrior Partnership by the end of July. America's Warrior Partnership is on the front line of preventing veteran suicide. They've had extraordinary success, and here's how you can help. When you switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk this month, you'll be invited to round up to support America's Warrior Partnership. No pressure, but if you do, Pure Talk will match your donation dollar for dollar. And to further celebrate 250 years of our extraordinary democratic republic, Pure Talk is offering unlimited talk, text, and data for just $34.99 a month. Dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe. That's pound 250, say Mike Rowe. And happy birthday to us.
Wesley